Unspeakable evil. Live the nightmare. Resident Evil. Exclusively from Capcom. Rated M for mature. Only on Nintendo GameCube.
The mortgage payments to me. The furnishings, color TV and piano to Barbara. The monthly payments to me. The uranium in our uranium mine to Barbara.
Uranium mine.
And the shaft to me.
The night of the generals. Peter O'Toole. Omar Sharif.
Here are the names of 3 generals. I want to know everything about them. One of them is a murderer.
But murder is the occupation of generals.
Oh boy!
John, would you like to be out there right now? They're having a lot of
those
fun.
guys are having so much fun. I'm having a good time just watching them.
Well, you know what they're doing. Of course, they're playing around right now, but you can imagine that the final lap is going to be some kind of war as they head down to complete lap number 4. The inside is still Bill Van Irvin in the American Speedy. The Squire Shop in lane 2. Tom DeEath in lane 3. There's your leader right there, the Squire on the right side of your screen. Speeds 113, 113, 113, straight across the board one more time. They're on the final lap here in the consolation race. There is only 2 seconds separating the first and third place boats. In fourth is the Kenny Toyota Volvo with Earl Hall aboard out of Virginia. Mickey Riemann, one of the colorful drivers, seen around the pits often, walking his dog Teresa. We've seen him on a few of the shows throughout the country. He's just a wonderful man, a great competitor. And after 6 years, he's back racing and right now putting on a wonderful show. On the inside still, right on the inside hip, is Milner Irvin of the American Speedy Printing with those Turbo Allison engines, testing the Merlin engine of the Squire Shop down the back chute. You see the log boom flying by, the water very good. On the outside is, of course, Tom DeEath and the Light All-Star. Now, this is going to be nothing more than a drag race as they come past the entrance buoy into the north turn, and they'll swing around and come down for the finish of this, the consolation race of the 7-Eleven Freedom Cup for 1984. Here they come. E. Milner Irvin. He's on the inside with the American Speedy. In lane number 2, the Squire Shop. Outside is Tom DeEath, and the winner, it looks like it's going to be the Squire Shop. Mickey Riemann wins the consolation race here in the 7-Eleven Freedom Cup. Second place, American Speedy. And third place, Tom DeEath and the Light All-Star. Turbine-powered, brand-new boat built by Jim Lucero and designed by Jim. In fourth place, Earl Hall and the Kenny Toyota Volvo. Well, there are 4 men that just had about as much fun as they're allowed to have. That was wonderful. The final speeds, 116 for the Squire, 117 for American Speedy, 115 for the Light All-Star on the final lap, and 109 for the Kenny Toyota Volvo. Hey, that was fun.
That was fun. That's what it's all about.
You know, you wish every single heat of hydroplane racing, regardless of the speed, could look like that, don't you?
Oh, I'd rather see him duke it out at 100 miles an hour any day.
You bet.
Those folks up and down the beach and the folks watching at home just saw just terrific deck-to-deck boat racing, and that's what it's all about in this sport. And you don't have to go fast.
Just a stab in the dark.
It's tough to put a Muriel down. It's tough to put a Muriel down. With so much flavor going for you. It's tough to put a Muriel down. It's tough to put a Muriel down. You're gonna want to take it with you all around. You get so much for so little. It's tough to put a Muriel down.
You and I have ever seen in monster truck racing. He gets past round number 1, and then he upsets the champion from 97. That's impressive.
Oh, it is impressive, but here's the thing about it. I don't know whether he upset the champion or the champion got upset.
Well, and their theory, it did exactly what it was supposed to do. They said, we're going to let Morris go out there and put himself into a position of getting into trouble, and that's exactly what happened.
Yeah, let him beat himself.
Beat himself.
It's what Lurch said before we started, and they did that.
Mr. Lurch.
Mr. Lurch, sir. And they did that, and it worked. It worked.
Unbelievable. Firestone Wilderness, the winner of the obstacle course challenge, and equalizer goes upside down. We got plenty more coming from Minnesota shortly. But first, let's head back to the studios in Charlotte, North Carolina.
Wow. Great action, Ralph Shaheen. And you know,
I'm not ready to go yet, okay? I'm not ready. You gotta wait. I got shit to do. I'm in the middle of something, all right? Just hold on.
Watch your mouth or don't come in here.
Uh-oh. Uh-oh.
Oh, yeah, people, come on, we're adults here. You know what? What is the point?
Yeah, we're adults here. I got a fucking Burger King fucking thing on my head. We're all fucking adults here, guys. People in my chat, 2 words. What are they? 2 words. Let me see the chat flood. Let me see the chat flood. 2 words. Okay, next caller. Please. Let's get into the meat and potatoes, which translate in American to dick and balls.
I got flip-flops. These are my flip-flops. Yeah, I really like my flip-flops because I can put them on. Because look, watch me put them on. I can put them on all by myself. Watch me put them on. Look, are you watching? Look, these are my flip-flops.
Thanksgiving Day. I remember it clearly. It was Thanksgiving Day. I was inserting myself in somebody else's fucking business as a cash grab, and you know. This channel is harsh reality. Karen Yak se jodió la sucia vida. Amen.
This is Jonathan Lee Riches. I have cheeseburgers. I'm gonna put cheese on them. I'm gonna make sure that I have my hamburgers because I'm a big boy now and I can make the hamburgers. My mom lets me use the stove now.
And I'm just like, wow, I like receipts, and they brought receipts. Like they had evidence to back up everything they said. And I'm like, okay, well, there's got to be another side to this, right? Like this can't. No, this is too fantastic.
Yeah, because you're not going to just jump to the conclusion that there's a conspiracy amongst cops to cover up a murder. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean cops and just like soccer moms and shit. Like that's what made it even crazier. Like,
yeah, get it, Betty. Yeah,
did you have a close relationship with your mom?
Get it, Betty.
Oh, of course, I still do.
Yeah.
My older sister was kind of she was more of the prissy girl that like going
that is
and
the best shit fucking
shopping
ever.
for the dresses with mommy. I was the tomboy that liked playing with the kids.
Shout out to Cherry for just being just easily the most faithful and loyal supporter that I've ever had, man. That someone could have that tenacity with loyalty. And I'm really blessed to have someone like Cherry be part of this channel and in my life. So it means a lot. And yes, I named him after Mr. T and Rocky. Say, woman. Say, woman. Say, woman. Since your old man ain't got no heart, why don't you come down to my apartment tonight and I'll show you a real man. Oh my God, I'm so in love with this little dude. Yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and wrap this one up. I love you guys very, 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 very much. And we will do this again very soon, my friends. Oh, say bye. Say bye. Oh, I love you too. Give me a kiss. Oh, I love you. Bye, guys. people. I hope everybody's doing okay. Happy Friday. Oh my goodness. The weekend is just beginning for many of you. And I'm very happy for you. And I hope that this live stream kicks it off for you well. It's really great to see all of you guys. Thank you so much for joining, and thank you for being in my chat. You guys absolutely deserve a round of applause. Man. Okay, so apparently Court TV also has a podcast, which I've never listened to, but I'm going to listen to it now. And I am really curious. We're going to be here for a minute, as usual, because there will be some. This is a podcast hosted by Vinnie Politan. He's going to spend about an hour, which translates on this channel in a reaction video to about 3 hours. So, you good, buddy? Okay. So we're going to go over Vinny's hour-long podcast about this case, most recently dropped. And the link to the YouTube version of this podcast is pinned at the top of the chat. So if you guys could just click on that and give the video a like, I would really appreciate it. So of course, Cherry's coming in hot. Thank you, Cherry. Appreciate it. So if you guys, like I said, go ahead and click on that real quick. Just take a second, click on that real quick. And then when you come back, click on the link that Cherry just dropped, because there is Glare merch available. So if you want a Glare t-shirt or a Clubber mug or a dog mat, I think, I don't know what she put in there. But there's merch available. So yeah, if you guys are interested in Glare merch, you can click on that link and purchase some. But the link at the top, the link pinned at the top, is going to be the podcast that we're going to be going over now. So now things are, man, it's kind of Twilight Zone-y in a different way that I've actually been discussing. People they seem to be changing their attitudes a bit. Let me check something. I want to see if something was updated, because there's one particular person. Because I've been on and off Twitter all day. And it doesn't look like there's a response, but so there's, yeah, people seem to be changing their tunes, even the people who are a little too proud to say that they might have been wrong. But people have been changing their tunes and acting a little bit differently. Again, I don't know how Don Marie was Mulek. Clubber's good. He's just sitting here right next to me, very calm. I think the neutering of him really did something as far as his behavior goes. Calmed him down quite a bit. So he seems to be good. Clubber, don't even think about it, buddy. See, just as soon as I was talking about, and that's my own fault, because I just left a bag of treats just sitting there that he thinks he is going to just go ahead and grab, which he's not going to do. So give me just 1 second here. Okay. So yeah, he's no Clubber. No, you can't have the bacon grease either, buddy. No, dude. So yeah, I'm really interested in hearing because this is what seems to be an hour long of Vinny just talking about this case, and that's really what made me interested, is because I'd really like to hear what Vinny thinks of everything as he explores this case independently without having to, constrain everything in such a short period of time, because he has different cases that he has to cover in each episode of Court TV that I guess it's called what is it? What is his show called on Court TV? The I forget already, but whatever. Sorry, Vinny. I'm having a brain fart there. I have those, and I didn't even eat a gummy, man. Tell me that's not the most stoner shit you ever heard of in your life. Is that you like forget to get stoned? What is that shit? I only I am capable of something that absent-minded. Closing arguments. Thank you guys so much. Closing arguments. So we're gonna go ahead and take a listen to this and see what Vinny has to say. Now, this is all audio, so I'm gonna minimize the screen here because we don't get to see Vinny's pretty face throughout all this. So you're gonna get stuck looking at my ugly face. So
the views and opinions expressed in this podcast are simply that, opinions. All are presumed innocent until proven otherwise in a court of law. Sensitive topics are discussed. Discretion is advised.
All right.
In the early morning hours of January 29th, 2022, the body of Boston police officer John O'Keefe was found in the snow outside of a suburban home. Now his girlfriend of over 2 years prepares to stand trial for his murder. Prosecutors allege Karen Reed backed her SUV into O'Keefe after a night of drinking and then left him to die in the snow. Defense attorneys claim that O'Keefe was beaten inside of the home and tossed outside in the snow, and that Karen Reed is the target of an elaborate cover-up. I'm Vinnie Politan, and on this week's Court TV podcast, you'll hear the latest hearing in full as she prepares to stand trial. Earlier this week, both sides were back in court to argue a series of motions, including a motion to dismiss the indictment against Karen Reed. Have a listen.
This is the Court TV podcast with Vinnie Politan.
Justice 22 CR 117, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. Can I have counsel identify themselves for the Commonwealth?
Adam Lally for the Commonwealth. Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Mr. Lally.
Good morning, Your Honor. Laura McLaughlin for the Commonwealth.
Good morning, Ms. McLaughlin.
Good morning, Your Honor. Alan Jackson for Ms. Reed.
Good morning, Mr. Jackson.
Good morning, Your Honor. Attorney David Unetti for Karen Reed.
Good morning, Ms. Tianetti.
Good morning, Your Honor.
Good morning, Ms. Reed. All right, so when we were last here on February 26th, I first anticipated that today would be for all motions, but I did read the very detailed affidavit from defense counsel regarding dates and what we should cover. And so today, as you know, I changed some of the dates to accommodate you, I think there was some short trial dates you may have had, or restitution dates. And so you did get the order on the new dates. So today is only for filing all Rule 17 motions and for the motion to dismiss under Odell and the motion for sanctions. So I don't remember if it was Mr. Jackson or Mr. Yannetti who...
Now, this is what you, Judge Bev, said last time, that they had all day. We had all day, except you gave them 10 minutes, which you'll say in a second.
Who last time said that I was operating from a blind spot because I didn't have the information that was disclosed to you folks from the U.S. Attorney's Office. So you were good enough to get me the entire packet, which I appreciate. I read it. I see now how the federal investigation began and when it began. I've also read the pleading. So the motion to dismiss, defendant's motion to dismiss is around 50 pages with attachments. The supplement is about 15 pages. The Commonwealth's opposition is about the same. The motion for sanctions is about 30 pages. There's no supplement, Mr. Yannetti?
There's no supplement.
Okay, and then the Commonwealth had about 25 pages, and then the Commonwealth supplement covered both motions, and the Commonwealth had originally probably hundreds of pages of exhibits. So I have read all of that, and I am mindful also, I keep coming back to the letter that was written to me on February 26th from the Deputy U.S. Attorney, who says, "We expect, of course, that the parties will disclose orally the materials in court only as necessary to further the proceedings." So I've read everything. I'm going to give each side 10 minutes, and we're going to start with the motion to dismiss. So, Mr. Jackson, I'll hear you. I think it would be particularly helpful if you were to focus on the exact prejudice to the defendant and how this all goes to the core of the Odell motion. And as you know, that's an awfully high bar. So go ahead.
Your Honor, I will try to edit my comments to stay within the 10-minute mark. It's very difficult to do that. I did not know that we were going to be under such incredible time constraints. As a matter of fact, I thought that the court said the last time we were in court, we had basically your word.
Yeah, all day. But that was when we had all the motions. But it's just these two motions
Right,
today.
but they're big.
They're big. So why don't you go ahead and start? If you need additional time, tell me. But it would be important to focus your argument. Again,
because-
I'm mindful of what the U.S.
Because she did say that that you had all day in response to the fact that Alan Jackson had pointed out that there was 3,100 pages and 1.3 gigabytes of data. So no, you were referring to the motion to dismiss and disqualify based on the findings of the federal investigation. I don't know what you're talking about here, Auntie Bev.
U.S. Attorney said to me in that letter.
And I am as well. And that mindfulness suggests that my comments will be directed to that which is necessary to further the proceedings.
Okay.
Which means that
right ahead.
I'll start with the basic rule of Odell. We start with the postulate that any distortion of the evidence, that's where we start. Any distortion of the evidence during the course of a grand jury proceeding impairs the integrity of the indictment, if there is an indictment, and pursuant to Odell, that requires dismissal. In this particular case, there were myriad examples, which I'll edit. I was going to go through several, but I'll just touch on them very quickly.
Your memo, I have to say, your memo is very thorough and very helpful to me because you outline everything and same in your supplement.
Thank you. The first point I want to discuss is
Good boy.
what I believe is the failure to disclose Sergeant Michael Lank's personal lifelong relationship with some of the individuals, specifically the individual Chris Albert. There was a comment or an incident, I should say, that we referred to in our moving papers that dealt with Chris Albert and Sergeant Lank years ago. They have a long-standing, years-long relationship. And I'll close this loop in just a second, but if you'll allow me, that relationship goes all the way back to 2002 at least. And there was an incident in which Sergeant Lank and Chris Albert had gotten into what can easily be described as a bar fight. Chris Albert had gotten into a bar fight of some sort. Michael Lank walks out of the same bar or an adjacent bar. He'd been drinking with his buddy Chris. He walks out, stumbles out, announces to the participants in this fight that he was quote unquote deputizing himself, and ultimately came to Chris Albert's aid. That was with the specific intent to assist an Albert in getting out of a legal jam all the way back to 2002. The reason I bring that up, and by the way, both of the individuals involved, not Sergeant Lank, both of the other individuals involved were ultimately arrested by Sergeant Lank. That case went to trial, and both of the individuals were found not guilty of assault. And that's after Michael Lank engaged in fisticuffs with at least one of the men, to the degree that the Canton police officers had to pull him off of the individual.
So this is in your memo.
I mean, so that's interesting because we never really actually talked about this. So Sergeant Lank and Chris Albert, Chicken Palm Charlie, who sits on the select board as we speak, and is the brother of Brian Albert, who is the owner of 34 Fairview, or was, but this guy, he gets involved in a bar fight to back up his friend Chris Albert, right? And then Lank, after actually brawling with these men, arrests them. How is that not a total conflict of interest right there? How is that not weaponizing his badge? Like, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do. You're going to fuck with my friend. Sergeant Lank basically pulled one of these. He said, all right, well, you're going to fuck with my friend. And so I'm going to kick your ass for fucking with my friend. And then on top of kicking your ass, I'm going to arrest you. Because I don't like the fact that you started a fight with my friend. So, and of course, I mean, they were found not guilty. I don't know under what circumstances they were found not guilty. If I had any faith at all in the justice system in Massachusetts, which I, at this point, if I had any faith at all, then I would say, well, it was because you can't have a dude who got involved in the very altercation that these men were arrested for and did the same thing that they did, and then find them guilty without bringing charges onto Chris Albert and Sergeant Lank, and much less even reprimanding Sergeant Lank for a misuse of his power, for misconduct. As far as getting involved in a bar brawl. I mean, if you're gonna fire a cop, like a beat cop, I happen to know one, really good guy, but he lost his job as a cop because he got a DUI. He doesn't complain about it. He's just like, yeah, I fucked up, and now he's doing something else where he's most likely making significantly more money than he would as a police officer. But he lost his job as a cop because he got a DUI. Now, if they're going to take his job away for getting a DUI, you're not going to take the job away from a cop who not only got drunk, most likely, and then got into a bar fight and then arrested the person he got into a bar fight with for getting into a bar fight. Okay. Awesome. You gotta love Canton, dude. You just gotta love it.
In your memo, and it also is exhibits C through E
That's
attached
right.
to your memo.
And the reason this comes to a head, and the conflict of interest comes to a head, is because Michael Lank ultimately was the first person to walk into Brian Albert's house. During the course of the grand jury, nobody elicited information from Michael Lank that he had a close personal relationship with.
The first person to walk into Brian Albert's house. So the first officer to walk into Brian Albert's house, who we just heard yesterday, Twattendorfer, say that the cops went into the home and everything was fine. But what she failed to mention was everything that she heard, because that video that she put out was absolutely a reaction to the hearing that we're listening to right now. So how would she not know? I mean, if we're supposed to put all of this weight into what Coffendorfer says because she's ex-FBI, well, first of all, act like it. Just apply the most minimal of investigative skills that are required to be law enforcement. Investigative skills that even I have, and I have no experience in law enforcement whatsoever, no experience with the law whatsoever. But, I mean, there's clearly a conflict of interest when there is this family history with Lank and the Alberts, and Lank is the first person to walk into the house where a Boston police officer was found dead in the front yard. And basically, there's a whole nothing to see here type of attitude going around. So, I mean, and what time did Lank show up? Anybody know? I really don't feel like pulling it up. But, I mean, what time did Lank show up? You know what I mean? When did Lank show up and actually look in the house, enter the house and look in? So, I mean, you've got this very shady situation. Oh, so he showed up, but he didn't go in. Thank you, Team Brittany. So he showed up but he didn't go in. Okay. But somebody went into the house. And why, because unless something shady was going on, again, I have to ask, if Lank is the first person on the scene, why didn't Lank knock on the door and say, hey, I need to look inside to make sure that everybody's okay? And I need to ask everybody what happened individually. That's what it's standard. They say, okay, well, somebody's hurt. There was a possible domestic situation here, right? So what happens when there's a domestic situation? Every body cam footage that we've ever watched where the police answer a domestic call, what they do is they pull one person aside so that the other persons cannot hear what they're saying, and you can differentiate whether or not there are different stories. You can apply whether or not you can assess whether or not there are different stories being told, whether there is something suspicious to investigate. But I mean, I would think that a dead Boston police officer beat up, all beat up, laying in the front yard would be enough suspicion, would raise enough suspicion to want to merit an investigation. But why didn't they search the house? You know what I mean? Doesn't make sense.
With the Alberts, that he had in years past come to the Alberts' aid, and yet he was the first person that came into the house. Even the grand jurors were stunned by this, and the specific grand jurors asked Michael Lank and asked the Commonwealth, or through the Commonwealth of the witness, why didn't Brian Albert ever even come out of the house? And I think we have the answer, and the answer is because the Albert, specifically Brian Albert, was waiting on a friendly, and they got that friendly through Michael Lank. That was
right. Yeah. Now that right there is an assumption by Alan Jackson, by the defense. He's saying, well, we think that it was because he was waiting for a friendly, and that friendly being Michael Lank. Okay. Well, I mean, can you argue with that? I mean, even the grand jury, he's stating that even members of the grand jury found this to be suspicious. They immediately had questions. They said, well, what? Okay. So wait a minute. Why didn't Brian Albert ever even come out of the house? Why would a police officer and the owner of the home, who happens to be a police officer, why wouldn't he come out of the house? Why? You're going to tell me again that his wife, Nicole Albert, just slept through all of this commotion? Why didn't Michael Lank ask Brian Albert, hey, listen, I got a job to do here. So, and I hate to do it, but I'm going to need you to wake up your wife, because we got to ask her some questions. I need to be able to officially state on the record. I need to get her on the record saying that she never came out of the house, that she never saw anything, that there was nothing suspicious. But that didn't happen. She slept through the police officers showing up. She slept through the EMTs showing up. She slept through everything. But at no point did Michael Lank go, hey, Brian, homie, I know I barely know you. I'm friends with Chris, your brother. But listen, you as an officer, you know how this goes. So, you mind if you mind waking Nicole up just for a minute? I hate to do it, but just wake her up for a minute. I got to get her on the record saying that she didn't see anything. That's all. That didn't even happen. We know this because Nicole Albert's statement says she slept through everything. She slept through, she didn't hear, see, nothing. Not even the EMTs showing up. She slept through them picking up John O'Keefe out of the lawn and taking him to the hospital. She slept through this. And then we happen to find out later that this was absolutely a lie based on Jennifer McCabe's phone records, because Jennifer McCabe spoke to her. There was an actual completed call that took place. So we know this isn't true. And Alan Jackson's not even bringing this up. Why isn't he bringing it up? Because there's no need to. There's not even any need to. The reason being is because it's already a conflict of interest that Michael Lank has a history with Chris Albert. So it's already a conflict of interest. Anything that's said as far as Michael Lank's testimony, as far as any of his reports that he writes from showing up there, they're irrelevant. They're irrelevant because there's a conflict of interest. Everything that he says, it has to be taken with a grain of salt. There's no solidarity as far as him being a police officer who's unbiased. There's none of that. So if his report is submitted into the evidence and there's a conflict of interest, that report is no longer valid evidence. It's tainted evidence. It's no good. It's bullshit.
That was withheld from the grand jury. Sergeant Lank is a longtime childhood friend of the Alberts. The Canton Police Department was conflicted off the case because of those personal and familial relationships that the Alberts have with Canton Police Department. And Sergeant Lank has a history of using his position as a police officer to shield the Alberts from criminal liability. That was never brought out. That's the kind of distortion that Odell talks about.
See, that's important. There is a history of Michael Lank using his position of power as a police officer to shield the Alberts from any trouble, to shield them from accountability for any wrongdoing. There's a history of this. And since there's a history of this, and he's the first officer on scene, well, anything that he says is bullshit. Shouldn't even be admissible.
Another broad example or a broad category that I want to discuss briefly deals with Trooper Michael Proctor. The Commonwealth withheld from the grand jury clear and even more egregious conflicts of interest as they pertain to Michael Proctor. Sergeant Lank was aware of this irremediable conflict the Canton Police Department had and that he should have had with the Alberts. So what does he do? He calls in Massachusetts State Police. And who do they send but Michael Proctor? And that's like jumping from the frying pan into the fire. That's the same Michael Proctor who's also years-long close family friends with the Alberts. The Proctors have...
So that's what happens, right? So let's paint that picture. Let's paint the timeline picture of law enforcement. Not of the crime, but of the alleged crime that law enforcement is being accused of, right? The investigators are being accused of. So Michael Lank shows up, and I'm actually leaving some certain stuff up that once I understand it a little better, then I'll talk about it. But there's an audio that was just released that I'm not fully understanding, and I'm not sure is too, I'm not ready to say that is very damning to the credibility of these investigators just yet. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying that I'm not ready to go there yet. But as far as like the timeline being painted here, right? Michael Lank, who already has a history with the Alberts, a childhood friend of the Alberts, right? And has a history of using his his position as a police officer to keep the Alberts out of trouble, now shows up to the Albert home to respond to a Boston police officer laying dead in Brian Albert's lawn. Once he goes and deals with that situation, which whatever is said there and whatever is done there is, who knows? There's nothing credible to it, considering the history with the family and Michael Lank. Then Michael Lank does what he's supposed to do, which is we need to get a detective on scene, right? The problem with that is he gets a detective on scene who also has a history with the Alberts, who also has a personal relationship with the Alberts. So there's a lot already from the word jump. From the moment that law enforcement shows up to investigate this crime, first responders, from the moment that the law enforcement end of the first responders, the moment that they show up, right? From the very moment that they show up, there's a conflict of interest. And then what this guy does is he calls a detective on scene who also raises questions of a conflict of interest due to his relationship with the owners of the home. So this whole thing already is there's more conflict of interest than not already. Yeah, and then there's that, the 6:04 a.m. arrival. Officer Saraf shows up. Now he shows up, but he doesn't knock on the door and say, "Hey, we need to look around." Right? He shows up. Lank shows up. Brian Albert never comes out of the home. Doesn't even open the door. What's going on here? You guys understand this is my house. Do you know who I am? I lead the Fugitive Task Force unit. You know who I am? This never happens. This never happens. You know what you need to do, Saraf? What's your name? Saraf? Okay, I need you to get on the phone and call Michael Lank. Get him down here. I'll only talk to him. Now, again, I'm speculating, but sure as shit sounds like that's what went down. And then Michael Lank shows up. Whatever said is said. And then it's, okay, well, we need to get Michael Proctor down here. We need to get Trooper Proctor down here. Trooper Proctor, I'll talk to him. Okay. But we also know that Jen called Michael Proctor during those hours. Michael Proctor called her. We know that Jen McCabe talked to Nicole Albert, and then shortly after that, Michael Proctor called Jen McCabe. Why? And then Michael Proctor magically becomes the lead investigator in charge of the death of John O'Keefe.
Have called the Alberts their, quote, second family. And to that point, now we have benefit of some hindsight, and that's the federal investigation. We've been saying since September 16th, 2022, in lengthy motions that we filed before this court and filed with the Commonwealth, there is a conflict. You're not investigating the conflict. That conflict was never described to the grand jurors, and we've been rebuffed at every single turn. Newly uncovered text messages.
Now, the case that Alan Jackson is presenting to Auntie Bev here is the whole investigation was based on a lie. It was based on deception. It was based on vital information that was left out. Vital information. The grand jury did not know of this personal relationship between Michael Lank and the Alberts and Michael Proctor and the Alberts. So this is a problem. They're saying the motion to dismiss is valid because the investigation should have never even happened. Not the way that it did. The wrong people were put on to investigate this. And the grand jury was misled. The grand jury who determines whether or not you can charge someone, they were misled. They were lied to. How is this not a perfectly valid reason to dismiss this case? I mean, think about that for a second. The entire base, the foundation of this case, of the investigation, is incredibly hollow. It's flaccid. It's fucked. It's nothing. So why wouldn't Auntie Bev just dismiss this case? Makes no sense.
Revealed that on January 19th, 2022, think about that date, that's 10 days before the incident. January 19th, 2022, Michael Proctor texted his own family members discussing the specifics of having Julie Albert babysit for his toddler child. We should all let that sink in for a second.
So yeah, I understand that.
There is a level of closeness that cannot be overstated. Michael Proctor is so connected to the Alberts that he was entrusting them or willing to entrust the Alberts
we got a super
caregivers for his toddler child.
I think we got a super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Super dad. I think we got a 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 super dad. Super dad.
because Street Squirrel dedicated this directly to Cherry, I had to play the whole thing. Because Cherry loves the super chat song. She loves it. She loves the Cuck Church dance. She can't get enough of it. So I had to do that. Thank you. Thank you, Street Squirrel. Appreciate it.
Child.
Oh, wait. And we also got a new membership. Paul Cristoforo is a member. Thank you, Paul. You guys make sure to follow Paul Cristoforo because Paul Cristoforo is very, 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 very he's a very, very integral part of the organized protests that take place that has brought so much attention to the injustice that's happening to Karen Reed and the injustice that is obviously happening to John O'Keefe by the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office, Massachusetts State Police, and the Canton Police. Oh my God, Peggy, killing me. Peggy gifted 20 memberships. Again, I'm not reading those off, but congrats to everybody who just got a membership. And thank you so much, Peggy. We love you. Hell yeah. Amazing. Peggy gifted 50 yesterday. Amazing. Thank you, Peggy, so much. Appreciate you.
Lost on anybody in this courtroom that for 2 years, the Commonwealth has been denying it and still denies it in their opposition paperwork. They still say, well, there's nothing to see here. It's Michael Proctor's sister who really is friends with Julie Albert, and that's not a big deal. Everybody look the other way. As a matter of fact, Ms. McLaughlin wrote the following in her opposition. Trooper Proctor's supposed close and personal relationship with the Alberts.
Now, wait. I'm going to hear that one more time, but and in lieu of Peggy's most recent and very generous gifting of these memberships, I will be doing a new members only stream coming very, very soon. I promise, guys. So new members only stream will be happening. It is in its conceptual phase at the moment. But yeah, you can't delete the super chat song. It can't be done. You have no power. What's up, Olivia? It's good to see you.
It's Michael Proctor's sister who really is friends with Julie Albert, and that, that's not a big deal. Everybody looked the other way. As a matter of fact, Ms. McLaughlin wrote the following in her opposition. Trooper Proctor's supposed close and personal relationship with the Alberts is, quote, entirely unfounded and a desperate creation of the defense, a desperate creation of ours. She says we created this.
Yeah, we created it, right? Karen Reed's defense created it. Karen Reed's defense just made it up. Right? Because that's their whole thing, right? Is that the defense just made this up via their attack dog, who goes by the name of Turtle Boy, right? That's what they did. They went and they hired Turtle Boy to just make up all of these lies and put them out there. Let's just forget about the fact that Turtle Boy actually provided receipts. Let's also forget about the fact that the very same Commonwealth charged Turtle Boy with conspiracy for actually getting the evidence that proves that the McCabe's and the Proctors have a personal relationship. Yeah. So since Turtle Boy proved this, well, I guess he must be working under the employ and in the payroll, under the payroll of Karen Reed and her defense team, right? No. Turtle Boy is merely an independent journalist with a drive for justice. Someone who sees something that's happening and he can do something about it and did what was within his power to do something about. That's what he did. That's it. They didn't like it, so they charged him with a crime. But I wonder, how can you charge somebody with a crime and then say that it's basically say that the crime didn't happen? Because proof was provided. Proof was absolutely provided. Photographs of Jen McCabe's Jeep at the Proctor's residence. Photographs of the Proctors and the McCabe's hanging out at a wedding. Photographs, Facebook photographs of them together at barbecues. We have sorry, 1 second. I mean, there is just all of this undeniable proof. And because Turtle Boy proved this, well, he's being charged with witness intimidation and conspiracy. And then after he's charged with conspiracy and witness intimidation, they seize Karen Reed's phones, not for her case, for Turtle Boy's case. And now they want to charge her separately for what? Talking to Turtle Boy? I mean, what we're seeing is blatant abuse of power, blatant abuse and weaponizing of the law. And the prosecution is still sitting here trying to say that this stuff was made up by the defense, when you're literally punishing and weaponizing, you're weaponizing the law to punish both Karen Reed and Turtle Boy, and you want to convince everyone that there's nothing to see here. Like, you got to pick a lane here. Team Brittany, thank you so much. And yes, oh man, that's the second super chat. I missed the first one. I'm sorry about that.
I think we got a super chat. Super chat. I think we got a super chat. Super chat. Super chat. Super chat. I think we got a super chat. I think we got a super chat. I think we got a super chat.
All right. Yes, I'm sorry, Team Brittany. Yes, the wedding's tomorrow in front of 34 Fairview, between Paul and Team Brittany. Oh my God.
But now we have the benefit of the federal investigation. And the Commonwealth finds itself in that very unenviable position of having to eat some very distasteful words, because we didn't create anything. And there's more. On February 1st, 2022, 3 days after John O'Keefe was killed, there was another text message. In this one, Michael Proctor's sister texts Michael Proctor very specifically and writes the following, quote, "Just saw Julie, and Julie said when all this is over, she wants to give you, Michael Proctor, a thank you gift." Michael Proctor didn't respond with, "That's inappropriate. These are witnesses. These are potential suspects.
Let's listen to that one
Please
more
tell her,
time.
don't ever do that again. Don't ever." She went specifically and writes, on February 1st, 2022, 3 days after John O'Keefe was killed, there was another text message. In this one, Michael Proctor's sister texts Michael Proctor very specifically and writes the following, quote, "Just saw Julie, and Julie said when all this is over, she wants to give you, Michael Proctor, a thank you gift." Michael Proctor didn't respond with, "That's inappropriate. These are witnesses. These are potential suspects. Please tell her, don't ever do that again. Don't ever suggest an exchange of gifts again. That would be inappropriate. I'm going to go write a report. I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Lally, and Mr. Lally's going to turn that information over to the defense and to the court." No, that's what he should have done. What he did do is...
Right. Now, we all know what we're going to get to that, but I don't want to lose my train of thought here. But, like, let's get real. I mean, here it's made up, right? They're saying, oh, well, it's made up. It's a damn lie. The defense made up this relationship between the Proctors and the Alberts, right? The defense just made it up. They lied. They made it up. But you've got Michael Proctor's sister texting him, the lead investigator's sister texting him saying, "I just saw Julie Albert, and she wants to give you a thank you gift." Now, I'm not going to jump all over that bandwagon that that it's a bribe. Okay. I'm not going to, I know a lot of people are saying it's a bribe. It's a bribe. It's a bribe. Technically, could it be proven to be a bribe? Most likely. Sure. But you know what I mean? I want to stay focused on the things that really, really, really matter and that can really, truly be proven here. And the issue that I have is that they said that the defense made up the relationship, and Michael Proctor's reaction to this when he says, "Give it to my wife." Well, all of this proves that you have Michael Proctor's sister texting him saying that she just saw Julie Albert, and Julie Albert said, "I want to give you a thank you gift." That is clearly proof that these people have a tight relationship. And that it's even, I mean, it's even expressed that much more when he says, "Give it to my wife." These are couples that are kicking it together. The wives are doing their thing, husbands are doing their thing. I mean, yeah, this is totally inappropriate. Now, again, I'm not going to go and say, "Oh, well, that's a bribe. It's a bribe." I mean, could it be a bribe? Sure. But I'm not going to paint that picture. I'm just going to say that it just proves the defense. It proves that the defense is stating a fact here, that there is a personal relationship between the Proctors and the Alberts. It absolutely proves it. And it also proves that the prosecution lied about it on multiple occasions. They lied about it to the grand jury. They lied about it in their opposition motion. And Michael Morrissey lied about it in his public statement. So,
as he responded, get Elizabeth one, his wife. In other words, get the gift from my wife. It'll be a little less obvious. So now we have the lead investigator from Massachusetts State Police literally discussing the exchange of gifts between the Albert family on the one hand and the Proctor family on the other hand as a thank you, their words, for helping the Alberts out of a jam. And if you looked up quid pro quo in the dictionary, you would find this set of text messages. 2 years later, to the day, on February 1st, 2024. Now let's fast forward 2 years later. Now Michael Proctor finds himself on the witness stand in front of a federal grand jury, which we just found out about. That grand jury was tasked with a singular commission, and that was investigating crimes of public corruption by law enforcement in relation to this case. And during that testimony, he was confronted with these and myriad other examples of evidence of his close ties to the Albert family. And he admitted to an AUSA under very intense questioning that not only does he know the Alberts, and does he socialize with them, does he drink with them, does he go to pool parties with them, but he told his partner, Yuri Butnik, all of this before Yuri Butnik testified at the grand jury and before he and Butnik actually interviewed Chris Albert. Why does that mean something? Why does that mean something to the...
So Bukkake even admitted to the grand jury that Michael Proctor admitted to him that they had a relationship, that they had a friendship with the Alberts. So you have Bukkake's testimony to the grand jury basically confirming that this is absolutely a conflict of interest.
To the court and to this argument. Because when Yuri Butnik testified before the state court grand jury, he testified that, quote, following formal introductions, end quote, Julie Albert and Chris Albert provided their phone numbers. Following formal introduction. That was a clear deceit on the grand jurors. Yuri Butnik knew, as did Michael Proctor, they didn't need formal introductions. Michael Proctor was considering having Julie Albert babysit his kid 10 days ago. Actually, at that time, 13 days ago. That left the grand jury with the intentional false impression that these people literally do not know each other. They've never been in contact. They're complete strangers. That was a lie. That was a concerted effort to hide that relationship and to hide the conflict of interest. And the grand jurors were fooled. They were left with the impression,
right?
Michael Proctor, Yuri Butnik, they don't know these folks. They're complete.
And why would it be so easy? Why would it be so easy to fool the grand jury with that information? Why would it be so easy to do that? Well, it's because the grand jury is going to assume that the law enforcement investigators that are tasked with the responsibility of seeking justice for a fallen police officer, a fellow police officer, that they're going to be truthful, that they're going to behave ethically. They're gonna act on this assumption based on the oath that these investigators have taken to be investigators. Why would the grand jury be suspicious of this? They simply wouldn't be.
I think we got a super dad. Super dad. I think we got a super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Dad, 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 dad. I think we got a super dad.
Scott McGinnis, thank you, buddy. There is so much more in the Fed, Tui. Never mind their ongoing investigation. Auntie Bev only let the defense give a glimpse. Tick, tick, boom. Agreed. I agree with you completely, Scott McGinnis. We're only getting 10 minutes worth of what they thought they had all day to address. So who knows what else is in that? Who knows what else is in that? Thank you, Scott McGinnis. I appreciate it.
Completely neutral, independent investigators, and nothing could be further from the truth. And the revelation of this evidence culminated in front of that same grand jury on February 1st, 2024. Under additional intense questioning by the assistant United States attorney, Proctor was caught in his own web of deceit and testified as follows, quote, so this is the AUSA talking, or asking the question. So obviously we're asking questions about your relationship with Julie Albert, with Chris Albert, and with Colin Albert. Do you understand that? Answer, yes, sir. Question, and you're saying that you're minimizing, quote, minimizing your relationship to the grand jury, correct? Answer, yes. He finally, under the scrutiny of a federal grand jury, admitted that he had been lying about his relationship to the Alberts, which means he lied to the grand jury, which means the evidence was distorted in front of the grand jury. And that is the thing that Odell requires.
All right, so your time is up, which includes...
Right there. Right there, case should be dismissed. Because there is not just proven, but admitted to, confessed, good old boy bullshit going on. Confessed. I mean, why has this case not been dismissed yet? Now, of course, I'm willing to, I don't know how courts work, man. I don't know how long it takes for a judge to make a decision like this. I don't know. But I would imagine that the next court date that's set, she's going to address this. And I just don't see how the next court date that's scheduled, Judge Bev isn't going to make a final decision on whether or not this case should be dismissed or not. I just don't see how.
Includes me interjecting. Do you want 5 more minutes?
If I could employ the court.
I'd like you to sort of get to the questions I asked as well. All right, I know you're reciting the evidence that I've read, so I'll give you 5 more minutes. Go ahead.
Thank you. I want to shift gears to another example or another series of examples of evidence that was distorted before the grand jury. And that deals with the use of, or the insinuation of Kevin Albert, yet another Albert, at the behest of Michael Proctor. Kevin Albert is a sworn Canton police officer. On day one, the Canton Police Department was completely recused off the case, in no small part because of Kevin Albert and the fact that John O'Keefe's body was found on Kevin Albert's brother's lawn. Yet the evidence that has been disclosed by the federal investigation, which we were not privy to, is that Michael Proctor actually utilized Kevin Albert's services to coordinate with the very witnesses who should have been potentially suspects and certainly should not have been subject to.
So basically, as long as the investigators don't share the same last name as the owners of the crime scene, well, okay. As long as they just don't share the same last name. Could they be homies from childhood? Sure. As long as they don't have the same last name, basically. Incredible.
To coordination by an Albert, when that's the very person on whose lawn John O'Keefe, or his brother's lawn, John O'Keefe was found. I want to turn to at least one more situation in my remaining minute or so, given the fact that this is curtailed. And this is not in our papers, but obviously it's a complete and probably the most obvious distortion of the facts. The Commonwealth suppressed one of the most obvious pieces of exculpatory evidence in the entire case, and that was a piece of evidence that they know torpedoes their entire case and their theory of this case, and that's Jennifer McCabe's Google search at 2:27 a.m., how long to die in cold. They had her phone at the time of the grand jury. They had her complete extraction of that phone at the time of the grand jury. They had a Celebrite report, Your Honor, at the time of the grand jury, and yet they did not present this evidence. They claimed, oh, we didn't have the right version of the Celebrite software.
Okay. So they had the evidence. They had the argument. At the time of the grand jury, they had the argument. At the time of the grand jury, the prosecution had their argument against the Celebrite data already. And they did not present it to the grand jury, where they are ethically obligated to. They have to. Yet they didn't. They left it out. They left that out. But they had it.
That's on them. That's not our fault. Certainly not Ms. Reed's fault. That's their fault. Get the right software. If you're going to bring this case, do it the right way. They say their argument is, well, we just didn't have the right software, so we didn't have the information. That's not true. They did have the information. It was sitting in her phone. They just didn't do their job in extracting.
Right.
And should the Commonwealth once again stand up in some sort of desperate pitch to dispute that time and this critical evidence, the court should note the following. Not only does the Celebrite report confirm the search and the time of that search, not only do our
Right. What that is that shows that if you're accusing the prosecution of railroading Karen Reed, that right there is evidence of it. They had exculpatory evidence at the time of the grand jury and they left it out. They had this exculpatory evidence. They know that Jennifer McCabe had made this Google search. It was on them. But what's funny is when it came time to actually, when the defense presented this evidence to the judge, they became defensive. So here is another example where the defense is presenting evidence and the prosecution is being defensive of that evidence, which is very, very weird. That right there is awfully strange. It's awfully strange. So here you have the prosecution who left this out, but the defense discovered this. And they're like, well, no, we have evidence that absolutely exonerates our client. Jen McCabe made a Google search at 2:27 a.m. saying, how's long to die in cold? Why wouldn't the prosecution, if they were aware of this Google search, why didn't they already have this argument? Why didn't they already present this argument? Why didn't they already shoot that down before it even became a thing and said, hey, yes, we went through the Google searches, we found this search, but we had experts go over it and we found that there was this old software and now there's this new software and it proves that the search didn't happen at 2:27, it happened at 6:30 whatever. And so Jesus Christ. Y'all.
I think we got a super dad. Super dad. I think we got a super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Dad, 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 dad. I think we got a super dad.
Paul Cristoforo's got jokes. He says, first alimony payment. Brittany, it's been a fun ride. I still love you. Keep up the great work. Yeah, that's it. It's over. Wedding's over. Wedding's off. Thank you, Paul. I appreciate it, buddy. So yeah, 2:27 a.m., right? So, I mean, the prosecution goes and shoots this down, but they only shoot it down once the defense presents it. Once the defense presents this to a judge saying we've got proof that something shady went on in that house. Why would Jen McCabe Google at 2:27 a.m. and then the prosecution jumps up all of a sudden and goes, oh, no, wait a minute. We had experts go over that. And they're saying that it was that it was the same search that happened at 6:30, whatever, right? But what's really funny about that, though, is we went over the Celebrite data, right? We went over the report, the Celebrite report. If it was the same search, why was it spelled differently? Two searches around the time of 6:30 a.m. that took place. I just don't have the exact time memorized, but around 6:30, the search, these two searches take place, right? And they're trying to say that the 2:27 a.m. search is the same search as the 6:30 something a.m., right? But why is it spelled differently? Why is it spelled differently? Because that's my whole thing is I don't even think you need these experts that are saying this. It doesn't take a fucking expert to see that there were three different searches and that each three searches are spelled differently. So the 2:27 a.m. search absolutely happened. I don't need an FBI expert with 3 PhDs. I know that's the car, the guy who the expert as far as recreating the crime. But I'm saying I don't need an FBI tech expert to tell me that. I can spell. I speak typo. the way the rest of us do, that understand that what Jen McCabe meant when she typed Hofslong, she meant how long. But there's different spelling. There's different wording. She didn't even get that right. If she's trying to cover her tracks at 6:30 a.m., she didn't even do that right. There's different spelling, different wording in all three searches.
Experts confirmed the search and the time of that search, but now a Quantico-trained special agent with the FBI's Regional Computer Forensic Lab, in other words, the United States Federal Bureau of Investigation, also specifically confirms that search was made on Jennifer McCabe's phone, and it was made on or before 2:27 and 40 seconds a.m. on January 29th, 2022. That fact, Your Honor, is no longer open for debate. And none of that was presented before the grand jury. I'll conclude by saying any one of these examples, and I didn't touch on all of them, but any one of these examples, the gift giving, the babysitting, the telephone extraction, the Google search at 2:27 in the morning, all of these, any one of these would be enough to dismiss the charges as they sit here today. But the cumulative effect of this deception and all of it, this distortion in front of the grand jury, is too much for the court to ignore. The simple fact, Your Honor, is the presentation by the Commonwealth before the grand jury in the state court action, it just wasn't fair. That's the easiest way to say it. It just didn't.
Yet it's been 2 years and all of this shit, minus the federal stamp on it, Judge Bev has been aware of. So what Alan Jackson is saying, the judge cannot ignore, she's been ignoring for 2 years. She's been ignoring it. That's my gripe with her. She's been ignoring it. So give me a fucking break on that, dude. Like 2 years. And it sucks because, they in order to get the judge to do what they want, like they have to kiss this judge's ass just to get her to do the bare minimum of her job. That's got to be so frustrating for Jackson and Yannetti. That's got to be so frustrating that they've got to sit there and kiss her ass and walk on eggshells just to get her to do the bare minimum of her fucking job. Amy in Boston gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much. Congrats to Marcia, Michelle, AJ, Cindy, and Joseph. Right on. Thank you so much, Amy in Boston. Appreciate you.
Didn't give Miss Reed a fair shot. It just didn't. That presentation was packed with lies, known lies by the investigators.
Right.
And the omissions.
The bottom line here is that Karen Reed has the right to a fair trial. And she was robbed of that from the very beginning. She was robbed of that from the time, from the very first moments of the investigation. She was robbed of this. So why in the hell is this even, is whether or not this goes to trial even a question? Why is it even a question at this point?
Missions and the manipulations and deceit by the very people that are supposed to be the ones that we in the community can trust. The ones that are supposed to protect our interests. And the law does not allow this sort of conduct to go unchecked. When the remedy, when this sort of travesty of justice occurs, is established by this state's Supreme Judicial Court, and that is dismissal of the indictment in its entirety. And it is not enough. And I'll be surprised if I don't hear it today. But something suggests, based on the moving papers that we just got from Ms. McLaughlin and Mr. Lally, are, well, Your Honor, we didn't know. We didn't know about the text messages. We didn't know about Proctor. We didn't know about Lank. All that stuff was revealed through the federal grand jury. It doesn't matter that Ms. McLaughlin individually didn't know, or Mr. Lally can say, I claim ignorance. I didn't know either. It's enough that an arm of their institution, law enforcement, they knew. And that was their job to tell the truth. That was their job not to fool or distort the Commonwealth. I'm sorry, the grand jurors. With that, Your Honor, thank you for the time, and I'll submit.
All right, thank you.
There was a conflict of interest from the very beginning of the investigation, and then from the very beginning of the prosecution, from the conception of the prosecution, which is the grand jury, The grand jury was deceived. Was deceived. The grand jury was absolutely deceived. Karen Reed has not gotten a fair trial. It doesn't even matter whether or not, this is the point now, whether or not Karen Reed is guilty or innocent isn't even a question anymore. It isn't even a question anymore. It doesn't matter. That's a fucked up thing to say. It's a fucked up thing to hear myself say out loud, that it just simply doesn't fucking matter whether or not Karen Reed is guilty or innocent of the murder of a Boston police officer. And the reason why it doesn't fucking matter is because the investigators who are tasked with the responsibility of getting that police officer justice fucked up and lied. They cost John O'Keefe justice. No one else. Not the defense, not Alan Jackson, not David Yannetti, not Karen Reed. They cost John O'Keefe justice. Nobody else. They are responsible. Because now you have, I mean, that's it. It's done. Like now it doesn't even matter. The truth is so distorted at this point, if not completely erased, that the question of whether or not Karen Reed is guilty or innocent doesn't even matter now. You know how fucked up that is? And no, Jeff, I get it. Because I do believe that there is a lot more to the federal investigation that we don't know about, that I still have hope that John O'Keefe can still get justice. I'm saying that as far as Karen Reed's position in all this, it doesn't even matter if she's guilty or innocent at this point. And that is Proctor's fault. That is Bukaki's fault. That is Lank's fault. That is Tully's fault. That is ultimately Michael Morrissey's fault. That's Lolly's fault too. But ultimately, it is Michael Morrissey's fault. The Commonwealth of Massachusetts failed the Commonwealth. The people elected and appointed to get the people of Commonwealth the justice. Because it is the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed, right? It is the Commonwealth versus Karen Reed. So the people who have been elected and appointed to represent the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, they failed in that representation. They failed in a most nefarious way. They failed the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. They failed all of you that are in my chat that are local. They failed you. Nobody else did.
You. Mr. Lally, we're going to start with 10 minutes. If you need more, you need to tell me.
And thank you, Your Honor. No, I think 10 minutes should be fine. I know the court has taken painstaking detail to go through all the material that's submitted, so I'll be as brief as I can. Essentially, the defendant, as the court is aware, doesn't challenge the grand jury presentation on the McCarthy grounds or probable cause standard. Defendant motions challenges under Odell. Odell essentially states dismissal of an indictment on impairment of the grand jury proceedings requires proof.
Now, keep in mind, this is a hearing. This is a hearing to address the motion to dismiss Karen Reed's charges and to disqualify the Norfolk County DA's office from this case, right? And Lolly is now up talking to Judge Bev, stating his opposition to this motion. Keep in mind, this is Lolly's opposition. This is the Commonwealth's opposition to the motions to dismiss and disqualify. And it's very interesting. This is what he says to refute the things that they're being accused of.
One, that the Commonwealth knowingly or recklessly presented false or deceptive evidence to the grand jury. Secondly, that the evidence was presented for the purpose of obtaining an indictment. And three, that the evidence probably influenced the grand jury's decision to indict. None of which I would submit the defendant has met their burden with reference to any of those three elements. Just addressing sort of the overarching themes of the defendant's motion. The defendant challenged...
Again, a perfect example now of, if I say the shit out loud, well, then it must be true. If I say the shit out loud enough, it's going to make it true. Despite, even though like he's saying, well, none of this, there's nothing to sustain any of this. There's nothing. The defense is crazy. There's nothing. But he just stated that they have evidence, proof. An independent federal investigation's findings, first of all. Second of all, a lead investigator in the case admitting to a grand jury that he was aware of the conflict of interest taking place in this investigation. Like, not only do they have proof, but they also have Buchanan admitting that he knew about the conflict of interest and yet continued to investigate. Okay. But yet Lolly sits up here and says, no, they're saying that and it's not true. And okay, why is it not true? Explain why it's not true. I'd love to hear why it's not true. Explain that, please.
Challenges, as he just stated, the testimony of Canton Police Sergeant Lank and his testimony attributing statements to the defendant that were made in the aftermath of Mr. O'Keefe's body being discovered, in a purported deception of Sergeant Lank's relationship with the Albert family, Trooper Proctor's purported false and deceptive statements throughout the course of his testimony, and the Commonwealth's failure to elicit a purported inconsistent statement of Christopher Albert, and the Commonwealth's failure to impeach Julie Albert's testimony. Your Honor, simply put, none of these issues or stated malfeasance actually occurred before this grand jury. As it relates to Sergeant Lank, I mean, we're talking about what the defendant submits as an attachment is an incident from almost 20 years ago, which doesn't involve anyone who was at the house at 34 Fairview Road on the night when Mr. O'Keefe died. The statements that Sergeant Lank is attributing to the defendant were not only testified to by Sergeant Lank, and they're testified not in a deceptive manner. They're testified to by Sergeant Lank in the sense of he indicated he spoke to officers who had preceded his arrival. All of those officers also testified before the grand jury. All of those members who received statements from the defendant essentially indicating that she did it. That doesn't just come from one source. That comes from at least 5 different witnesses, 3 of them paramedics with the Canton Fire Department. Counsel posits the question of why didn't Brian Albert come out of the house? No one did. Not only out of that house, but any house. It's clearly visible in the grand jury exhibits. You have the cruiser camera footage from Officer Saraf, as far as no one else in the neighborhood coming out of the house, as well as testimony from a number of different witnesses that were there.
I love that. So his defense against Brian Albert never coming out of his own house, who happens to be a police officer, and there happens to be a dead police officer laying on his lawn. His defense to that is, well, not only did he not come out of his house, but none of the neighbors came out of their houses either. Okay. It wasn't their house. Because I would say that, okay, well, the neighbors, let's explore why the neighbors wouldn't come out of their house, right? Let's just speculate on that. One speculation would be neighbors just mind their own fucking business. The Alberts have good neighbors who just know how to mind their own fucking business and not come out and be Karens and ask, what's going on? What's going on? What's going on? That's one reason why they wouldn't come out. Because they're not required to, and they want to mind their own fucking business. Or B, another speculation would be, well, maybe the Alberts have a reputation. Maybe Brian Albert has a reputation. Maybe the people who are related to Brian Albert have reputations, and maybe those neighbors know about those reputations, and maybe those neighbors were like, I don't want to be involved in that shit. No fucking way. I would imagine that it would be a fucking nightmare to have to sit on a stand and testify against these very people who have this reputation and have this power in their town that they would be afraid of, because the very brother of Brian Albert, who already has this reputation, Chris Albert, sits on the select board. These neighbors have businesses. These neighbors have to live there. They don't want their quiet life fucked with. Now, I'm not speaking for them. I'm just speculating as to why wouldn't they come out of their house. And that's not even touching on how fucking bizarre it is in the first place that Lolly would even bring that up as some sort of reasoning, as some sort of justification as to why Brian Albert would not investigate what's going on his own property. It makes no sense. Dude, a dead guy shows up on my lawn. I'm going to go, hey, is there anything you need from me? And I'm going to answer questions, but as soon as those questions start to smell like they're trying to implicate me, I'm going to lawyer up. For sure. Innocent or guilty, I'm going to lawyer up. But I'm going to offer cooperation. I'm going to offer assistance in some way. If I'm an experienced police officer, I'm going to offer my colleagues, my brothers and sisters with a badge, I'm going to say, well, if you need anything, you got any questions, just ask. I'm here. And I'm going to supervise. I'm going to stand there. I'm going to make sure they're not fucking destroying my property. I'm going to ask all kinds of questions if need be. I mean, how is that in any way? How does Auntie Bev listen to Lolly say things like this and not think, what the fuck does the neighbors have anything to do with anything? Why would the neighbors come out? Why is that supposed to deter me from wondering why Brian Albert would not come out of his own house to ask questions or to offer any assistance?
And present on that morning in the dark, in a blizzard at the time that Mr. O'Keefe is found. Counsel wants to say that the Commonwealth is asking the court or everybody to sort of look the other way when it comes to these things. What I would submit is that's exactly what the defendant is doing. Look the other way, defense by obfuscation. It's essentially, it's a 3-card money trick.
Excellent point.
On the corner on the side.
Yeah, the 3-card money trick. Shut up. Debbie has a great point here. Wasn't it neighbors who gave up the solo cups? So Lolly's lying, right? I mean, wasn't it a neighbor who gave up the red solo cups, offered the red solo cups to collect blood samples? I mean, wasn't it? Lola, welcome. Appreciate you. I mean, so, but the neighbors never came out, asked questions. Nobody talked to neighbors. Where'd they get the solo cups from then? Because I don't imagine that Lank has solo cups in his car and he's like, oh, shit. Wait, there's blood? Hold on. I got solo cups just for this occasion. I seriously doubt that. Lolly is fucking lying.
Look at all of this. Look at this relationship. Look at that relationship. Conflating these relationships, sort of the distortion that I would say between what exists in social media realm and what exists in reality. That if you know someone, that automatically means that you're best friends with them, every single one of their siblings, every single person that they've ever met or socialized with. One social interaction, transforms into a long-standing 20-year relationship. All of those things. What the defense is obfuscating from is the overwhelming evidence that was presented to this grand jury from a multitude of sources, 42 separate witnesses, 56 exhibits, over 1,400 pages of transcripts, which clearly demonstrate and indicate that the defendant, Karen Reed, killed John O'Keefe. But they don't want you to look at that. They want you to look at who texted who when and what they said and what was asked and what was promised.
See, now you have to wonder, right? You have to wonder, okay, well, why would Lolly lie about this? I mean, it's just at this point, it's a dismissal of the case. Fuck it. Move on to the next case. You know? All right. Well, I lost this case. Move on to the next one. No, Lolly's not defending against the dismissal. I mean, it seems like it because that's one of the motions. Sure. That's not what he's defending against. He's defending against the disqualification because the dismissal is going to lead to the disqualification inevitably, and that disqualification inevitably is going to lead to sanctions. It's going to lead to people having to be held accountable for their misconduct. That is all he is trying to avoid. He doesn't give a fuck about Karen Reed being innocent or guilty at this point, except for the fact that you have to direct your questions elsewhere because there is still a deceased Boston police officer who died under suspicious circumstances named John O'Keefe, and people want answers. And if the person who is accused of being responsible for this man's death is now vindicated, well, then those questions are going to be directed elsewhere. And there's only one other place to direct those questions, and that is inside the 34 Fairview house. There's no other place to go. And that is what they are trying to avoid. Because if Karen Reed goes free for this, people still want answers. People still want justice. Everybody in this chat still wants justice. I want justice for this fallen police officer. Jackson and Yannetti represent Karen Reed. Therefore, since Karen Reed would naturally, if she is not responsible for the death of her boyfriend, she's going to want justice for the death of her boyfriend. She wants justice for him. And since they are representing her, they are going to seek justice for John O'Keefe. It's not their job. Their job is to make sure Karen Reed does not go to jail for this crime. Their job is to make sure that if she's innocent, they can make they get to prove it. They don't even have to prove it. They just have to make the prosecution fail at proving that she's guilty. That's the extent of their job. Nothing else. That is the extent of their job. But that's not satisfying to them. Karen Reed naturally wants justice for who killed her boyfriend. Or for her boyfriend. She wants the people responsible to pay. And that's what these men are doing. She probably sat in their office and said, listen, this is how much money I got. This is how much I'm willing to pay you. Do whatever you got to do. But not only do I want to walk away from this, but I want the people who did this to pay. This is what I'm paying you for. I have no doubt in my mind that that's what took place. That's what any person would do. And Karen Reed absolutely comes off as that type of person. Someone with a fiery spirit. Someone who's not going to just walk away from this and go, as long as I'm cool. No, that's not the vibe I'm getting from Karen Reed. The vibe I'm getting from Karen Reed is, yeah, wait till I get out of this, motherfuckers. Just wait. One thing at a time. But just wait till I get out of this shit, motherfuckers.
I think we got a super cat. Super cat. I think we got a super cat. Super cat. Super cat. Super cat. I think we got a super cat.
Ex-Muffin Man says, there are 3 different PhD experts, a series of witnesses that say to a person that he was not hit by a car. quotes by Jackson and hearing. Yes. Yes. Ex Muffin Man, thank you so much. I appreciate you. And there is also, oh my goodness, Just Christie, member for 1 month, and Chloe was silent with strangers on property. Right. Weird. Thank you so much and welcome, Just Chrissy. And Ex Muffin Man again, not one expert when listened to the words Jackson uses. Okay, thank you so much. I appreciate that. Okay, Dave's channel. Let me address that. And I talked to Sean about that. I DM'd with him about this. Because I was very skeptical. I was very skeptical, and it was nice to put a face to this Nick guy. When I first started talking about this case, this guy used to, some of you guys might remember, he used to blow up my super chats, just blow up my channel with super chats to the point to where it got distracting. Cherry had to hide him. But it got to a point to where it was just distracting. He just kept talking about Soros. And the thing is I'm not saying that there's no truth to what he's saying. I'm saying I'm not ready to go down that path just yet. I'm glad it was brought up here in the chat. But if we're sitting here and we're trying to convince people that we're not a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists, you know what I mean? And we're trying to convince people that we're not a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists and that there's valid reason to feel that there actually is a conspiracy, a realistic conspiracy taking place between law enforcement officers and officials. Well, you know, I'm not going to start jumping on that bandwagon just as the evidence is becoming more and more apparent that we're not a bunch of crazy conspiracy theorists. You know what I mean? So I'm not getting into the whole Soros thing just yet. I'm not saying it's not true. I don't know, but I'm not going to explore that. The way I'm chewing my food before I swallow it is what I'm doing. Okay. I'm chewing my food first. Okay. And that is exploring and proving that the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, the district attorney, okay, the district attorney, Michael Morrissey, is corrupt. That's enough for me right now. I want to walk before we run. You know what I mean? I think the healthy thing to do here is to stay on task of what we know for sure, and we can explore the facts and prove and come to a very logical conclusion. So I'm not even touching the Soros stuff just yet. And I'm not saying, and Nick sounded like a very nice guy, and he sounded like a very logical guy, even, you know, the way he was spitting out this information seems like it was very well thought out, but there were little things that he was saying that bothered me. I'm like, the guy was claiming that there were 3 attempts on his life by the deep state, and these 3 attempts failed. Who the fuck is this guy? John Wick? How did the deep state conspire and attempt to kill this guy 3 times and fail? And he's like the loudest dude in the room, wearing the loudest fucking hat in the room. You know what I mean? So I have issues with Nick's credibility. I have issues with it. I'm not saying that he's not credible. I'm saying that I am just simply taking issues based on what little I know so far. So I'm not ready to go there yet. Right now, like I said, I want to chew my food before I swallow it. Let's just stay on task here for the moment, and then we'll get into it.
In reviewing the materials provided by the U.S. Attorney's Office, a couple things that I would note is, number one, We have no idea how much of a percentage of the totality of the federal materials we have. I don't know if we have 5%, 50%, 90%. I have no idea. The other part that's confounding is that it appears that these materials are materials from the state prosecution were provided to the U.S. Attorney's Office by Mr. Yannetti or by the defendant or by defense counsel. And again, what I don't know is how much of a percentage of the total discovery from the state case was actually given and provided to the U.S. Attorney's Office in which to conduct their investigation. But it's clear from the investigation that they extensively investigated the facts and circumstances that led to Mr. O'Keefe's death. In some, what I would say, just as Mr. stated on the last date,
let me also, like, this is no, I'm not throwing shade at Sean. Sean is, and I don't want to speak for him either, but Sean is a very passionate guy when it comes to police corruption. He is a passionate person when it comes to making sure that law enforcement agents are following and living up to the oath that they took to get victims justice, to fight for the victim. And I love that about Sean. Absolutely. We need more ex-cops on this platform who are fighting that good fight. And I'm grateful to Sean for that. And I'm always going to be grateful to him for that. I'm not, but you know, when someone comes to you and says, I have all this proof that there's all this corruption, and you're passionate about taking on corruption head on, well, then you're going to give the guy a mic and you're going to listen to him. I'm not going to hold that against Sean. I mean, that's, you know, I'm just saying, based on what I saw and what I heard coming out of Nick's mouth, I have questions. That's all I'm saying. I'm not ready to jump on this whole, this is bigger than the Commonwealth thing. I'm not ready to do that just yet. I'm not saying it isn't. I'm just saying I'm not ready to go there yet, you know? And I think Sean was getting there too, as he was listening and listening and listening. I've done that myself, where I've brought people on and I'm just like, okay, whatever you're going to say is going to be interesting, because I was fascinated and I was interested. Doesn't mean that I'm like, oh my God, what was Sean thinking bringing that guy on his channel? I mean, it didn't fuck up Sean's credibility with me in the slightest bit. You know, I've done that 100 times myself, where I'm just like, you know what? All right, this person seems interesting. Let's have them on. Their opinions don't reflect my opinions, you know? So no, I'm not throwing any shade at Sean whatsoever. Sean's a good dude. I think he's passionate, and I believe in what he's doing. So that's how I feel about that.
These materials are largely consistent with the Commonwealth theory of the case. There is no suggestion of a third-party culprit, no suggestion of cover-up of evidence, no suggestion from the 13 civilians witnesses' testimony that we've received or transcripts of that testimony. All of them confirm that Mr. O'Keefe never entered 34 Fairview Road. All of it.
Now, this is interesting. Somebody brought this up on Twitter.
Received or transcripts of that testimony. All of them confirm that Mr. O'Keefe never entered civilians. There is no suggestion of a third-party culprit, no suggestion of cover-up of evidence, no suggestion from the 13 civilians witnesses' testimony that we received or transcripts of that suggestion of cover-up of evidence, no suggestion from the 13 civilians witnesses' testimony that we received or no suggestion of cover-up of evidence, no suggestion from the 13 civilians witnesses' testimony that we received or
Okay, so give me 1 second here, folks. Actually, I don't want to go through all that. You guys could reference it yourself. But when Michael Morrissey made his public statement where he lied multiple times, we already know that he lied multiple times in that public statement. He states that there were 11 people in the house. According to Lolly here, there's 13. But Michael Morrissey, his boss, said there were 11. So there's two witnesses that are not being counted in Michael Morrissey's statement. Michael Morrissey says 11. Lolly here says 13.
Or transcripts of that testimony. All of them confirm that Mr. O'Keefe never entered 34 Fairview Road. All of it was absolutely no animosity between the individuals at the Waterfall Bar or at 34 Fairview residence. There was no fight. There was no dog attack. There was no eyewitness to the circumstances that led to Mr. O'Keefe's death. Witnesses also testified consistent a year later. They testified in the state grand jury in the spring of 2022, largely in the spring of 2022, and then largely in the spring of 2023 before the federal grand jury. And their testimonies are largely consistent with the defendants making declarative statements that she did it, not a question mark at the end, but clear definitive statements on scene, that she had discussed the damage to her taillight prior to leaving Mr. O'Keefe's home on the morning of January 29th. You have a number of different statements that were alluded to by Mr. Jackson in regard to text between from Trooper Proctor's phone. Of note, there are no text messages between Trooper Proctor's phone and Julie Albert's phone, except for two no-content text messages, one from June 21st, 2020, and one from September 1st of 2020. There is a discussion between Trooper Proctor and his sister because Julie Albert had provided childcare in a pinch on several occasions for Trooper Proctor's sister.
In a
Trooper Proctor
pinch.
also testified that Julie Albert never did that for him, never watched his kids, never had looked after his children. That essentially never happened. Lastly, get to the Google search, and I would agree with counsel in the sense that it's really no longer open for debate, but I'm not really sure why we're still even talking about this or why this is still a topic that they're pushing. Essentially, what we have is, yes, what counsel mentions is there is one expert who was given two extractions, presumably provided by defense counsel, that indicates from that particular FBI expert that the searches were done at 2-something in the morning. What counsel neglects to sort of raise and stress with the court is that there's a separate, and I forget exactly what it stands for, but an RCFL analysis of the phone in which through both Axiom and through Celebrite, and the conclusion of that expert is that the searches occurred when Ms. McCabe testified they occurred because the defendant asked her to conduct those searches at 6:23 and 6:24 in the morning. Really, the argument stops at the point of it's not, we didn't do our job to get the Cellbrite version that shows that information did not exist at the time of the grand jury. So I'm not really sure how the Commonwealth is supposed to run something through a Cellbrite version that isn't in existence at the time the grand jury is conducted. It's a subsequent version in which their expert, Mr. Green, finds these purported search without looking at the cache files, without looking at the DB list, without looking at the SQLite database, without looking at the wall file, all of which was done not only by Trooper Garino, an independent expert named Jessica Hyde, which counsel has all of those, as well as the senior technical analyst from Cellbite itself, a man named Mr. Whiffen. Counsel's had this report for months at this point. And essentially, Mr. Whiffen is essentially the person who creates the software that all of these experts are using. And his definitive opinion indicated in his report is that Ms. McCabe conducted those searches at 6:23 and 6:24 in the morning. So I would agree with counsel that it's really no longer.
What about the non-experts who can read? What about them? You know what I mean? Like, what about the non-experts who can tell that the 227 search has a different wording and spelling than either of the 623 and 624 searches? What about them? You know, us. Because does it take an expert? Does it take an expert to assess something that would require a second grade reading level?
No longer up for debate. I think we just disagree as to the conclusions of that. But based on the totality of the evidence, and what I would submit as the overwhelming evidence that was presented to this grand jury, all of these sort of individual parsing of stated malfeasance simply doesn't even come close to sustaining the burden under Odell. And for that reason, I would ask that the court deny the motion to dismiss.
Okay. Do you want a few minutes, Mr. Jackson, to respond?
Very briefly.
Okay.
First of all, it's always interesting to hear an argument that suggests there's nothing to see here. That's exactly what Mr. Lally did yet again.
Right. Nothing to see here. That was basically a prosecutor's fancy way of saying nothing to see here. Nothing to see here. Because at no point did he actually give a valid opposition to their motion to dismiss. At no point did he do that. I mean, he's saying that the grand jury stuff didn't even happen. That was Lolly's. Lolly was like, the grand jury stuff didn't happen. Can you not reference back? Is there not a stenographer sitting during a grand jury hearing, taking notes? Is that not a thing anymore? Am I crazy? That this stuff isn't put on the record? The stuff stated in the grand jury testimonies, the grand jury testimonies are not put on record. Am I crazy? Because why would the defense file a motion that they would have to prove? Because this is what you have to keep in mind as well. When the defense is filing a motion to dismiss and disqualify, okay? Dismiss and disqualify the Norfolk County District Attorney's Office. That motion, when it comes to that motion, the burden of proof is actually on the defense. This is one of the very few, if any, occasions where the burden of proof is absolutely on the defense. And the burden of proof, the defense has to absolutely be able to prove what they are accusing the Commonwealth of Massachusetts of. They have to be able to prove it. They're not going to just stand in front of a judge and say something like, this happened, this happened, this happened, and all of the proof is right here in this 3,100-page document, as well as the grand jury testimonies. Why would, I mean, I would understand why a defense attorney would say that if you couldn't prove what you were saying, if there was no way to prove it. No way to prove it or disprove it. I could see them just doing the game show host thing, right? But that's not the case here. When it comes to these motions, when it comes to the motion to dismiss and the motion to disqualify, that means that they're making accusations. There are accusations being made in the motion to dismiss and the motion to disqualify. Period. There are accusations being made saying the Commonwealth, there were investigators who lied to the grand jury. And in the federal grand jury, one of these investigators admitted that lies were told to the other grand jury in the Karen Reed case. I mean, you can't just pull that shit up. Like there's no there's no transcripts of this grand jury testimony, of these grand jury testimonies. There's no transcripts. Your opposition motion, your opposition is they're lying. It didn't happen. Because that would make me think that, okay, well, either Lolly thinks that Judge Bev is too stupid and or lazy to pull up these grand jury testimonies, or Judge Bev is corrupt and Lolly knows that she's not going to. Those would be the two only conclusions. Would just assume that Auntie Bev would not pull up these transcripts. I mean, she doesn't have people working under her. I don't imagine she's going to do it herself, but she doesn't have people working under her that she can go, hey, listen, this dude is saying this lawyer is saying this happened, and then this lawyer is saying that it didn't happen. I need you to look into this and tell me whether or not it happened. Why not? So either Lolly assumes that Judge Bev, either Lolly is treating Judge Bev like she's fucking stupid and lazy and making this assumption that she's stupid and lazy, or he assumes she's not going to look because she and him are in cahoots in some way. Both observations are valid. And I didn't do that. Lolly did that in his wording. I didn't do that. That's Lolly. Lolly's the one saying what they're claiming happened, as far as the grand jury goes, didn't happen. He said that shit. It's just not true, Your Honor. Okay. Well, Judge Bev, it's now her duty to get to the bottom of it and find out who's lying. One of you's lying. One of you's is lying. Who is it? That's her responsibility to get to the bottom of that. It'll be interesting. It'll be interesting.
You said, look the other way, look the other way. Oh, it's the defense wants you to look the other way. We don't want you to look the other way, Your Honor. We want you to look directly at the evidence of the compromised relationships that Trooper Proctor had and hid. That's what we want the court to look at. He suggests, oh, well, there's just a couple of text messages. It's no big deal. The fact is, Your Honor, she really hit him. She really hit him. Let's remember, she really hit him. And these text messages, they mean nothing. We're talking about the integrity of a sitting grand jury and the presentation before that grand jury. But Mr. Lally has in his possession, but he didn't mention Now that he says, oh, well, she killed him. Let's just get on with it. She killed him. He's already tried and convicted her in his mind and tried to do it in this courtroom. Doesn't quite work that way. Now Mr. Lally has in his possession another thing from the feds that we didn't have access to.
And
The federal
another
investigators
one.
hired, independent of us, we had no idea, and independent of the Commonwealth, hired a professional reconstructionist, 3 PhDs, to look into exactly this issue. Did Karen Reed's car, did her SUV make contact with John O'Keefe? And their conclusion to a person was his injuries were inconsistent with the damage on the car. The damage on the car was inconsistent with having made contact with John O'Keefe's body. In other words, the car didn't hit him, and he wasn't hit by the car. Period. Full stop. That's their independent expert, not ours, not somebody on our payroll like Mr. Whiffen or one of their experts or Trooper Garino, who's an arm of the agency. This is an independent federal government witness or series of witnesses who say unequivocally that car did not hit John O'Keefe, and John O'Keefe was not hit by that car. But he didn't mention that. Second, he argued that the texts were not, these aren't texts between Julie Albert and Michael Proctor. These are texts between his family members. And then he mentions these 2 texts that had no content. What are the chances that Michael Proctor sent Julie Albert texts with no content? Your Honor, it's not.
I mean, yeah, Julie Albert's just sending text, blank text. Fucking insane. Jay Adams is like, Kev still talking about the vehicle when the feds have cleared that theory. But what you're forgetting is that according to Plevin, the feds are dirty. That Josh Levy is going to be subject to sanctions after this, and blah 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 blah. Right? I mean, come on, man. Plevin, unreal, dude.
No, it's not that they didn't have content. It's that it couldn't be recovered, which sometimes happens. But we do have evidence that they were, in fact, in communication with each other as early as 2020. And with regard to the 2:27 a.m. search, it's not a 3-card Monty. It's not a shell game or whatever other fanciful thing Mr. Lally wants to suggest that it is, as he tap dances his way around this. He says that our expert, Rick Green, didn't look at the SQLite database. Yeah, Mr. Lally, reread his report. Yes, he did. He didn't look at the wall file. Yeah, Mr. Lally, reread his report. Yes, he in fact did. And he's the one that found the 2:27 a.m. search. And with regard to the Regional Computer Forensics Lab, that's the definition he couldn't remember, what they actually said was, because Mr. Lally got this wrong too, what they actually said was, yes, there was a 6:23 and a 6:24 search. And there was a 2:27 a.m. search as well. All 3 of those searches existed in the phone, Jennifer McCabe's phone, and it's not up for debate. That wasn't presented to the grand jury. The information that we've been talking about today wasn't presented to the grand jury. We're talking about the integrity of a proceeding. He doesn't get to convict my client by standing up here and pounding the table and saying, oh, she did it, she hit him. So let's just all get on with it and deny this motion. We're talking about the integrity of what is the foundation of Massachusetts judicial system. And that integrity was compromised, that integrity was impaired. And it demands that justice be done. And that justice is in the hands of this court. We ask this court to do what the evidence dictates, do what the law dictates. And
yeah, I'm not asking you to look the other way. I'm telling you to fucking read the goddamn transcripts of the grand jury testimony, and you tell me who's telling you to look the other way. You tell me who's lying here. I'm not asking you to look the other way. I'm asking you to fucking look right into it. I'm asking you to take not even a microscope. Doesn't even take a microscope. This is what I'm telling you fucking happened. Just fucking look. That's it.
And that is dismiss this indictment. That is the only way justice will be found in this case. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. Mr. Yannetti, are you all set?
Yes, Your Honor, thank you.
So the same time, and let's see how you do with it.
We believe our witnesses.
Let's see how you
They are
do
telling
with
the
it.
truth. Karen Reed is guilty. Any suggestion to the contrary is a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Can you imagine a district attorney with a sworn duty to do justice and respect the presumption of innocence issuing such a statement in a pending case?
See, that's the thing. Listen to that. That's really important because that holds a lot of water right there. That statement. There's a lot of weight in that statement. He's reciting the prosecution saying that it's a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. That saying that Karen Reed is not guilty is a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Why would any defense team be desperate to reassign guilt? It would be the other way around. They are reassigning guilt in order to, in a desperate attempt to exonerate their client. It's very telling that the prosecution feels so attacked at them reassigning guilt. That's very interesting. You got to pay attention to the language, folks. Let's hear that one more time.
They are telling the truth. Karen Reed is guilty. Any suggestion to the contrary is a desperate attempt to reassign guilt.
Any attempt to the contrary is a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Why are they afraid of reassigning guilt? That's not their job. Their job is to simply prove that Karen Reed isn't guilty. And it's not even their job to prove that Karen Reed is innocent. It's their job to make it obvious that the prosecution failed to prove that Karen Reed is guilty. That's their job. Nothing else. Their job is to is not even to prove anything. It's not their job to prove anything, except when it comes to the motions to dismiss and disqualify because they're making accusations. Their job is to create reasonable doubt in the case against their client. It's not to reassign guilt. Now, I could see reassigning guilt as a tactic to exonerate their client. Sure, I could see that. But when you word things like that, when you're the prosecution and you say, well, it's a desperate attempt to reassign guilt, it shows that you were afraid of guilt being assigned somewhere else. Because again, if Karen Reed is exonerated, then people are going to want answers still. And the only place to direct those answers or to direct those questions is 34 Fairview Road and who was inside that night. In the early morning hours of the 29th of January, 2022. That is the only way. So when you say something like it's a desperate attempt to reassign guilt, it means that you're afraid. It tells me that you're afraid of those questions being directed elsewhere, to the only place that those questions can be directed to. And they might defend themselves against what I'm saying as, well, that's the problem. These are innocent people. We don't want that. But I mean, if they're innocent, then why should they worry? Why should they worry? Why should they be worried about questions being asked? Why is Turtle Boy in jail for asking these questions? If these people are innocent, how can you intimidate witnesses by asking questions? Because the only thing that these people, if they're innocent, well, I mean, if unless they're guilty, the only thing that they would be intimidated by is the truth. There's nothing else to be intimidated by. How can you sit there and accuse Turtle Boy of intimidating witnesses when he's asking them to tell the truth? That's not intimidation. It could be harassment. Sure. It could be if he actually harassed anyone, but he didn't. These rolling rallies that are supposedly harassment, right? They were what, 7 to 10 minutes long, tops? Went out there, showed up, yelled through a bullhorn, stated the facts, and left. Took his rally elsewhere. That's what he did. Right? I mean, but how can innocent people be intimidated by the truth? That's my question. What are they intimidated by? What are cops intimidated by a blogger? Because they minimize him all the time. He's a fucking blogger. Who is this guy? He's a fucking blogger. He's not even a real reporter. Who the fuck is this guy? You minimize what this guy's capable of by minimizing his profession, by making him out to be basically Grant. Right? So you're just minimizing who this guy is, yet you lock him up because he's such a threat. Makes no sense. Makes absolutely no sense. How can innocent people be intimidated by the truth? It's impossible. Can't be done.
Can you imagine a district attorney with a sworn duty to do justice and respect the presumption of innocence issuing such a statement in a pending case? Before August 25th of 2023, I could not. Yet that was the message of Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey to potential jurors in this case on that date. I've been practicing criminal law as both a prosecutor and a defense attorney for over 30 years now. Never have I seen such unethical conduct from a prosecutor. I know of at least one law professor who used Mr. Morrissey's statement in his class to teach his law students how a prosecutor should not act. Another member of the bar has already reported Mr. Morrissey's conduct to the BBO. And now we are here with a motion to disqualify Mr. Morrissey from further prosecuting this case because he has a personal interest in the outcome. Your Honor, this court should grant our motion to disqualify. And at the outset, I note that we've also moved for sanctions, dismissal of these indictments as a result of his misconduct. But we have so many additional grounds for dismissal as a result of the material provided to both sides by the federal authorities that we will be filing a further motion to dismiss for extraordinary governmental misconduct. My co-counsel has spoken to that previously. To the extent that the court entertains our motion for sanctions, specifically dismissal, as a result of his egregious...
Can I just interrupt there and ask you, are these going to be the same motion, essentially?
No. There's information and evidence that's been provided by the federal authorities which deals with the egregious conduct of both the district attorney and his investigator.
Yeah, I mean, this is a podcast, so we're already more than halfway through here, and I haven't heard Vinnie say anything yet, but I'm fascinated listening to this again. I can't listen to this enough. So that's why I'm going through it, because it's just triggering thoughts, things that I want to address.
Gators and the police. That will be the subject of a separate motion. Your
So I thought that was going to be your supplemental memo to this motion. It sounds like it's the same issue, Mr.
No,
Vinnie.
it's not. And what I'm saying to the court is I have limited time.
When I interrupt you, I stop the time.
Well, I appreciate that. But even with that, Your Honor, the focus of my argument is going to be on the disqualification as opposed to the dismissal. I've submitted papers on the dismissal. I will rest on those papers with regard to that issue. That's my only point.
All right. So when you file the other motion, I need you to...
Yeah, like Auntie Bev, there's a team of attorneys here, right? One's handling the dismissal, the other one's handling the disqualification. The lawyer that's handling the dismissal already spoke. Now we're moving on to the disqualification. That's where I'm speaking up, and now you're like, you've got a problem with that somehow. Like, I'm not speaking, like, the issue of the dismissal has already been addressed. I'm trying to speak up on the issue of disqualification now. With all due respect. Like, it fucking sucks that they have to sit there and kiss this lady's ass like that.
You to include in your memo how that's different specifically from this. Not just the remedy, but how the basis of it is different.
Understood.
All right, so I'm going to start you again from scratch. Go right ahead.
I appreciate it. Well, Your Honor, this case, admittedly, has been an unusual one for a district attorney to deal with. The district attorney's office is not accustomed to a criminal defendant fighting back in the way we have prior to trial. What usually happens when the prosecution brings charges is they detail the allegations at an arraignment in court. And as a result, their narrative and theory of the case becomes widely reported, while the defendant and the defense team remain relatively quiet. After arraignment, moreover, the media typically lose interest and wait until a trial or a potential resolution of the case before they start reporting on the case again. And in this way, the district attorney's office is quite accustomed to always controlling the narrative in pending cases, at least until the defense makes an opening statement at trial. And as long as the prosecution gets to control the narrative in the press, they have no problem with what's being reported. But of course, this case has been different. Their control of the narrative did not last very long here. In our view, it became clear very early on in this case that their narrative was wrong. their theory of the case was wrong. Their allegations did not fit with the evidence that we fought so hard and for so long to get access to over 2 long years. So along the way, we spoke out about our findings of exculpatory evidence. Mostly.
And now, what's fascinating is people who have just been nasty and disgusting and saying, having no argument. Now, the tides are starting to shift. After this hearing, the tides are starting to shift. And what's really funny is it's all based on a hatred for Turtle Boy. And Turtle Boy, even though his case has not been dismissed yet, Turtle Boy hasn't even made public the evidence that he has that absolutely exonerates him. I'm not even talking about the obvious evidence that's already there. Like, he hasn't even, he's sitting on so much evidence right now that that proves that this Lindsay person is a completely, totally abusive, psychotic piece of shit. He's sitting on so much of that evidence, and he has not made public. And he's just waiting. People are wondering, how could he be so confident? When he walked out of that courtroom yesterday, he was so confident. Even though he's got these new charges, blah, 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 blah. He's confident because those new charges are only proving his position that much more. They're just trying to shut him up, and they're just trying to keep him locked up. And yet he's not locked up. Because now, after this hearing and it being so public, people are seeing this. People are seeing this. People are seeing what's going on here. And people are seeing that everything that Turtle Boy has done, all the independent investigations that he's conducted, are coming to fruition. That is a harsh reality. It is happening. Everything is coming to fruition right now. Everything that Turtle Boy has investigated and uncovered are not just things that he just says. They are being proven. They are being validated by an independent federal investigation. If I were Turtle Boy, I'd be just as confident. I'd be just as fucking cocky. Absolutely. I did 2 months. That's how I would be thinking it. I did 2 fucking months in jail. I fucking bought the right to be cocky here. Fuck you. I paid for that right to be cocky with my life, with 2 months of my life. Which is ironically why his haters hate him so much, because he's so fucking cocky. Which is ironically why my haters hate me so much, because I'm so fucking arrogant. But the thing is I'm arrogant because I don't say things that I can't prove. I earned the right to be arrogant. Being arrogant is part of the whole experience of being entertained by me. That's how it works. That's how I run my channel. So, I mean, but the thing is I'm only arrogant about the things that I know I have a right to be arrogant about. So far, I haven't seen Turtle Boy be arrogant about something that he doesn't have the right to be arrogant about. This guy put in fucking work. And I want to be clear, I'm not comparing myself to him. I'm just saying that there are certain aspects about his situation that make me relate to him to a certain degree. What I'm saying is I can't compare myself to Turtle Boy because I don't do the work that Turtle Boy puts in. If I put in the kind of work that Turtle Boy put in when it came to this case, and now it's just like becoming, it's now being validated by an independent federal investigation, dude, I would be fucking cocky and arrogant as fuck. I'd be laughing in the faces of everyone who has tried to destroy me. And one person is now
being charged with the same shit that he got charged for. The only difference now is that person's actually guilty of it. She actually threatened. She actually had someone assault him. So, yeah, I would be arrogant and cocky as fuck if I was in Turtle Boy's position right now. Absolutely. Everybody who hates him that much more, but they're more quiet. They're a little quieter. They just have to sit there quietly and stew in their hate. And I love it. Some are changing their minds. Some are kind of easing away from that hatred a little bit and making little comments and having a different, singing a different song. They've changed their tune a little bit. And they're gradually moving. There was one dude fucking on Twitter. I can't even fucking remember his fucking name. But this guy sat there. He accused me of beating a dog. Some of these accusations, I'm like, what the fuck are you people even talking about? Insane things, insane accusations based on insane rumors with no proof, nothing, right? And they run their mouth about this, and this is their whole argument to Karen Reed being guilty, right? But then now that this hearing has taken place, now that Turtle Boy's bail wasn't revoked the second time, now that it's becoming more and more obvious that this woman is completely and totally fucking insane and totally a fucking tool being used by the very people who he's trying to expose as corrupt. Now that that's happening, and again, he hasn't even shown all the evidence of it yet. But I promise you it's there. I guarantee it's there. Now that that's happening, these people are changing their tunes a little bit. This one dude was just like, oh, whoa, and he tried to talk to me all fucking nice, but I was like, nah, bro, you were a nasty motherfucker. Well, these people, I think it was a comment that I made, a post that I made about that I hope that more former police officers come forward and state their positions on this and how they feel about it, blah, 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 blah. I love to hear from former cops. I love to hear from lawyers when it comes to this. Now, then this guy is all rational after fucking spreading all these shitty, nasty rumors about me, about Turtle Boy, about other people, attacking everybody, attacking fucking Mike Crawford from Young Jerks, attacking all these people. And now it's just like, well, you know, they won't do it because they're afraid of attacks and blah, blah, blah. Like, you mean like you throwing these attacks? You're one of the main people who are throwing all these insane attacks at people, unfounded, shitty rumors that are totally fucking irrelevant. Irrelevant to Karen Reed's case. Irrelevant to getting John O'Keefe justice.
I think we got a super dad. Super dad. I think we got a super dad. Super dad. Super dad. Super dad.
All right. I just saw no song, please. Okay, sorry about that. Luna's mom, thank you. No super chat song, please. TV's reaction to this hearing with you and Brian was telling. Even he was shocked by what came out. He lost it right there on YouTube Live. I mean, that was a lot. He didn't lose it, but it was a lot to process, you know? I mean, I can only imagine. I could only imagine the mixture of feelings that Turtle Boy was feeling, hearing the feds validate this stuff. Because on one hand, I'd feel relief. But on the other hand, I'd be like, dude, I spent 2 fucking months in jail over this shit. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to tell him. I didn't know how to console him. I didn't know. It caught me off guard because I'm sitting there on panel with this guy on his channel, and I didn't even know what to fucking do to tell the guy. How do you fucking do anything to console him, dude? How do you do anything in that position? I can't sit there. I mean, I can empathize as best as I can, but I've never been through what he's going through. I've never put in the work towards something that he put in this work to do. Sacrificed my freedom for 2 months. Sacrificed my reputation, my loved ones being threatened and harassed. I never had to deal with that. You know what I mean? I didn't know what to say to the guy.
Within this courtroom, but occasionally outside. The DA was not used to that and apparently didn't like it because they initially sought the extraordinary remedy from this court of trying to gag the defense from exercising our First Amendment rights to discuss a client who at all times is presumed to be innocent. And as
right now, again, let's not forget that the prosecution filed a motion for a gag order and Judge Bev denied it. Okay? Let's not forget that. But we also can't forget that they filed a motion, a gag order motion, that if it had gone through, the prosecution would absolutely be guilty of violating that gag order themselves, just as the defense would. Why? How do we know this? Because Michael Morrissey made that insane public statement that consisted of several lies and then tried to influence the public opinion by stating that everybody in that house was innocent, when the only proof of any consistent lying that's taken place were made by the people that were inside that house. Everyone who he painted out to be innocent, everyone, at least certain people, were proven to be liars, and others, well, because those people were proven to be liars, the other people, it's not unfair to assume that they're liars too. Now, I'm not saying they are. I'm saying it's not unfair to assume it. Why? Because Michael Morrissey represents the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts by law, under oath, represents the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And he misrepresented the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts in that public statement. Grossly misrepresented the people of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Grossly. And repeatedly. So I don't want to hear that shit.
And as you know, they filed that motion on June 9th of 2023, and it didn't work. The court denied the motion, specifically ruling that any statements attributed to counsel could generally be characterized as responses to the accusations against Ms. Reed and are therefore permitted under the rules. When you made that ruling, though, Your Honor, you admonished both sides that commenting on the credibility of witnesses would have a prejudicial effect on the proceeding. And at that point, we largely stopped making extrajudicial statements. By contrast, Norfolk County District Attorney Michael Morrissey, only 25 days after that court's ruling, instead decided to blatantly ignore this court's admonishment. DA Morrissey went off the rails, gave an unprecedented video statement to the media where he specifically vouched for the credibility of Commonwealth witnesses in violation of the rules of professional responsibility, in violation of this court's order. A member of the public issued a public records request, and we got this to show all of the media outlets that DA Morrissey made sure received his statement. Before any trial has occurred, he called the defense theory in this case, quote, a false narrative. Before any trial has occurred, he announced his opinion that nobody within the home at 34 Fairview participated in any murder or any cover-up. Before any trial, he vouched for the credibility of Commonwealth witnesses Jennifer McCabe, Matthew McCabe, and Brian Albert. He announced that those witnesses were forthcoming. In other words, truthful. Before any trial has occurred, DA Morrissey announced that the defense theory is, quote, a desperate attempt to reassign guilt, end quote. Given those broad statements of Mr. Morrissey's opinion that Karen Reed is guilty,
why would he be afraid?
That the DA in their opposition to this motion had.
Why would he be afraid of reassigning guilt to innocent people? Why would Michael Morrissey be worried about that? I mean, come on. Dude, you're going to have to prove to me. I went into this case from the very beginning thinking you need to prove to me that these cops are dirty. You got to prove to me that shit. I'm not about to just fucking start blasting corruption all over my fucking channel been here 5 years, I'm gonna fucking just start blasting corruption all over my channel that cops are corrupt unless you can fucking prove it. Sorry, but I've seen some pretty overwhelming proof. Because lying, that's corruption. That is corrupt as fuck.
Had the audacity to claim that DA Morrissey's words were narrowly tailored to the harassment of witnesses. It goes without saying, but your words are not narrowly tailored if you're a prosecutor vouching for the credibility of witnesses, particularly after a judge told you not to do that. Your words are not narrowly tailored if you're announcing to the public that you've already assigned guilt to a criminal defendant before trial, a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. DA Morrissey announced to every potential juror in Norfolk County not that someone charged with a crime is innocent until proven guilty. The words innocent until proven guilty never came out of his mouth. Instead, he announced his office had already assigned guilt to Karen Reed. So in his view, when she fought back by reasserting her right to be presumed innocent, he deemed that a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. Never, in over 30 years of practice, have I ever witnessed an elected DA so blatantly violate the rules of professional responsibility. Never have I witnessed an elected DA trample on the constitutional rights of a criminal defendant who enjoys the presumption of innocence. And I do have some perspective in this area. I had the privilege of spending the first 10 years of my career as an assistant district attorney in Middlesex County. I had the privilege of working with and for some of the finest DAs this Commonwealth has ever seen, from Scott Harshbarger to my mentor, Tom Riley, to Martha Coakley, Jerry Leone, Marion Ryan. In addition, I worked with some of the finest Massachusetts state troopers acting as homicide investigators, men and women I respect for their integrity and prowess as ethical investigators. In a million years, I could not imagine any of my former colleagues and bosses making such a statement. They were professionals with ethics and a humble respect for the awesome power they possessed as public prosecutors. So for those reasons, in some ways, it pains me to have to file a motion like this. But DA Morrissey, through his poor and unethical decision-making, to release a video statement designed to prejudice potential jurors against my client has forced my hand. So the question then becomes, why did he do this? Why did he take such a personal interest in this case such that he would take the unprecedented, and that's his word, unprecedented step of vouching for Commonwealth witnesses? Why would he take the unprecedented step of denigrating the defense theory to potential jurors? The unprecedented step of announcing to the public that Karen Reed is guilty? Why would he trample over the presumption of innocence and announce that we're trying to reassign the guilt that he's already assigned to her? Well, on December 4th.
Now, remember, people, remember, the word unprecedented, that's not Yanetti's word. That's Michael Morrissey's word. Michael Morrissey used that word. Unprecedented. Never been done before. No district attorney has ever done the shit that I'm about to fucking do. When he made that statement, he said, unprecedented. No district attorney has ever done what I feel they need to do. This has to stop. Bro, come on.
4th of 2023, we began to learn why. That was when the DA released to us correspondence he had with the U.S. Attorney's Office, which dated back to May of 2023. That correspondence revealed that federal authorities were investigating this case. And it's worth noting, they only released those to us once Fox 25 had succeeded in a public records request, and they knew what they had kept hidden was going to be revealed. And once we got those letters, we learned why they wanted them hidden. We learned that in May of 2023, the DA's office knew there was a federal investigation. They did not reveal that knowledge to the defense. In fact, on June 12th of 2023, the acting U.S. attorney specifically told the DA's office they could reveal the existence of this federal investigation to us, but they didn't. They kept it secret. And then worse, Your Honor, on December 4th of 2023, the district attorney's office provided a false notice of discovery to this court and to the defense. In that notice of discovery, they claimed they had received no confirmation that any witnesses had testified before a federal grand jury. We now know that was a lie. We know it's a lie because 7 months earlier,
fucking
wrote
lie.
that multiple state witnesses had received subpoenas. We know that was a lie because now that we've got the information from the feds, Nicole Albert testified before a federal grand jury that she participated in a group conference call with Jennifer McCabe, Matt McCabe, Brian Albert, 88 Lally, and victim witness advocate Stephen Nelson, a group conference call before she testified before the federal grand jury in July of 2023. We also know it was a lie because he wrote in his letter, and I quote, "We have confirmed that witnesses testified before the federal grand jury." Yet 7 months later, the DA's office tells this court,
oh shit, y'all. MC Free Karen Reed is in the house, y'all.
that it had received no confirmation.
You would handle of the day.
We are outraged that he lied to us. This court should be outraged that DA Morrissey lied to you. In a prior hearing in this case, I argued to this court that the letters back and forth confirmed that DA Morrissey believed that he personally and his office in general was being targeted by the U.S. Attorney's Office. I chose my words carefully. I never said he received a target letter. The existence of a target letter is irrelevant. The inquiry is, what does the DA know and believe? And he revealed in those letters what he knew and believed. He revealed that he believed that U.S. Attorney Rachel Rollins had a personal animus against him. He wrote, quote, "She's made no secret of her personal animosity towards me." He also wrote that the head of the public corruption unit at the U.S. Attorney's office may be personally retaliating against him and targeting him because his wife was unhappy with the way the Norfolk DA treated her. He wrote, in short, that he knew, felt, and believed that he and his office were being targeted. Now, why is that important? It's important because of the immense power that a prosecutor has. It is important because we need an unbiased prosecutor with no vested interest in the case to try to administer.
Okay, so follow Brian Barrera on. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing your name. He's an attorney. Very active on Twitter in regards to this case. And he's saying, just occurred to me that we should do a public records request for Morrissey's previous drafts of his statement. I mean, would that be a thing? Like, would that be like on record somewhere? I don't know how that works.
Mr. Justice based on the evidence and not based on any personal interest in a case. It is important because in the words of U.S. Supreme Court Justice Robert H. Jackson, quote, "We must have assurance that those who wield this power will be guided solely by public responsibility."
So I just want to tell you, you've
Right,
gone over your
that's
time.
where
I see
I'm
your
at.
reading, so you have some idea on how much longer you have. How much longer do you have with that?
Probably about 3 minutes, Judge.
Okay, yeah, go ahead.
Thank you. Indeed, Your Honor, Justice Jackson practically spoke to DA Morrissey from the grave. The prosecutor has more control over life, liberty, and reputation than any other person in America. His discretion is tremendous. He can have citizens investigated, and if he is that kind of person, he can have this done to the tune of public statements and veiled or unveiled intimations. Well,
I gotta say, Vinny, this is the laziest fucking podcast. This is the laziest fucking podcast episode I've ever heard in my life, dude. I like you, Vinny. I do. But Vinny, this is the laziest fucking podcast. I mean, anybody could have done this, bro. Like, where are your like thoughts on this? I haven't heard you say one fucking word.
Well, the prosecutor may choose a more subtle course and simply have citizens' friends interview. The prosecutor can order arrests, present cases to a grand jury in a secret session, and on the basis of his one-sided presentation of facts can cause the citizen to be indicted
I
in
thought
a
I
trial.
was lazy.
Well,
God
while the
damn.
prosecutor at his best is one of the most beneficial forces in our society, when he acts with malice or other base motives, he's one of the worst. In his own words, DA Morrissey revealed he has an interest in this case that goes beyond the interests of justice. He revealed that he knew that his office was being unfairly targeted and investigated. And it doesn't matter if his belief or knowledge was right or wrong. It's only important that he believes it. And this means he has a personal interest in getting Karen Reed convicted. If he can use whatever means he has at his disposal to convict her, and he succeeds, that would vindicate him and harm the federal investigation of his office. On the other hand, if she's found not guilty, as we expect she will be, he knows that he and his office will remain in the crosshairs of the federal investigation. And it's important to note, Your Honor, both sides have been made aware multiple times that as we have this hearing today, that federal investigation is still open. They've called most of the Commonwealth's witnesses to testify, but they're not done. DA Morrissey has an interest in this case not to do justice, but to win. That's why he hid his knowledge of the federal investigation for 7 months. That's why he slow-walked discovery. That's why he gave a lengthy video statement saying Karen Reed is guilty. That's why he talked about our theory being a desperate attempt to reassign guilt. And perhaps that's why, in contravention of Judge Krupp's preservation order, DA Morrissey's office gave the go-ahead to Brian Albert and Brian Higgins to destroy or dispose of their phones. We only learned that because the federal authorities revealed that in their investigation. And I'm just about ready to end. The DA also, as my colleague has indicated, I'm sorry, the FBI has confirmed that Jennifer McCabe Googled how long to die in the cold at 2:27 in the morning. But what has not yet been mentioned is that 5 minutes before that, Brian Higgins and Brian Albert were calling each other at 2:22 in the morning on January 29th after previously testifying they were both asleep at that time. There was a lot of suspicious activity in the early morning hours of January involving the witnesses that Morrissey improperly announced to the public were telling the truth. We're getting to the bottom of it, and the truth will come out.
See, here's the thing. If you're lying, Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, a lot of Brians and Michaels in this case, by the way. But Brian Albert, Brian Higgins, if you're lying because you were doing something else that was nefarious, that's not quite as that's not quite as bad as murdering a cop and covering it up. If you're trying to cover up something else, such as I don't know.
Yes! I like it.
I mean, just admit it. You know what I mean? Like, a woman's life is on the line. Like, seriously. If you guys are fans of the booger sugar, man, just admit it. Like, just admit it, you know? Like, just go to your fucking NA meetings and just stand there and be like, hey, my name is Brian Albert, and I'm an addict. I'd like to take this time to share. I went out drinking. The rest of us decided to go back to my place, do a little blow. You know how it is. This woman hit her boyfriend with her car, but we didn't want anybody to know that we were all stuffing our noses with blow. And, we lied. This woman, she's being accused, and we just trumped up this bullshit investigation to get her convicted, so that nobody would look at us for doing blow. So, my name is Brian Albert. I'm an addict, and that's my sharing for this week. Like, just do it, dude. Like, it's not that hard, bro. It's like, take the licking, like, that's it. It's not that difficult, dude. Like, just admit that you're a fucking cokehead, but thing is I feel like you would have done that. Feels like you killed John, or who did, and it wasn't Karen, and you covered it up. So, I mean, if all of this, think of how stupid this is. Like, if all of this is to cover up the fact that you were fucking doing blow, like, you know what I mean? Like, put the murderer away, Take the L and put the murderer away. If she's guilty and you're just trying to cover it up, you're covering up your investigation because you're trying to cover up the fact that you guys are a bunch of fucking cokeheads. You know what I'm saying? Like, shouldn't the justice for this police officer, because now it's all coming out. You know what I mean? But the thing is I don't believe for a fucking second that the reason why you guys went through all this trouble was to cover up that you guys are cokeheads. Like, I'm not buying that shit. You know what I mean? Like, I'm just not buying that shit. I think you all are some shady motherfuckers. I think whoever killed John O'Keefe was inside that house. I think John was inside that house. And I think you motherfuckers are a bunch of lying pieces of shit that are covering up for whoever fucking killed John O'Keefe. So, yeah.
But as we continue to defend her, Your Honor, like any criminal defendant, my client deserves a neutral, impartial prosecutor interested solely in justice, with no vested outcome in this case. And it's crystal clear we do not have that in Michael Morrissey. That is why he should be disqualified from this case. And that is why I urge you to do just that in the interest of impartial justice.
All right. Thank you very much. Who's arguing this? You, Mr. Lally?
All right. So we got like about 12 minutes before we hear.
All right. So let's start with 10. If you need
nope.
Thank you, Your Honor. And again, I don't think I'm going to need much more than that. Again, I know the court has reviewed all the materials, and I know the court is well aware of the standard, and it's a standard which I would submit just simply hasn't been met here. To characterize counsel's actions in this particular proceeding with specific reference to the media and saying it's different, I think is minimization to the highest degree. Essentially, what the defendant is positing, or what counsel is positing in this motion, is that due to a recorded statement by the district attorney over 6 months ago, that impinges on her right to a fair trial, or it impinges, shows some sort of deleterious motive on behalf of the district attorney in the handling of this case. The statement, as the district attorney indicated in it, was in response to an extraordinary degree of relentless and really relentless harassment and intimidation of nearly every witness associated with this case, which included a July 22nd rolling rally of nearly 100 people traveling to witnesses' homes and calling them murderers.
Okay. So, right away, nothing that was addressed by David Yannetti is being opposed here. The disqualification motion that David Yannetti just laid out, right, as to why, is not addressed here. Don't look over here as far as our misconduct goes. Look over there. So Lolly likes to say that that's what the defense is doing, playing 3-card Monty and saying, don't look over here, look over there, when it's actually what Lolly is doing right now, because he does not address any of the accusations at all. He does not justify what Michael Morrissey did with his public statements. He doesn't justify the phone call between Higgins and Albert. He doesn't justify anything, which is what his job is to do. At this very moment, what he should be addressing is what Michael Morrissey is being accused of. He is in a position to defend Michael Morrissey's actions, defend the integrity of the investigation by defending Higgins and Brian Albert. And yet, this is about Turtle Boy. All of a sudden, it's Turtle Boy. Do you mean to tell me, Lolly, that Turtle Boy went to jail for 2 months so that you could just stand up there and make this argument? Is that why Turtle Boy went to jail for 2 months? Is that why he has to go to court all of these different times? What's up, Dave? I appreciate it, buddy. It's good to see you guys. Make sure to subscribe to Making Law Simple. Dave's an attorney who believes that Karen Reed is innocent. I think he believes that Karen Reed is innocent. I think that it's safe to say that Dave knows that this investigation has been fucked from the beginning. I think that's safe to say.
That is largely what this was in response to, and is in complete conformity with Massachusetts Rules of Professional Conduct 3.6b6 that permits an attorney to make a warning of danger concerning the behavior of a person involved when there is reason to believe that there exists a likelihood of substantial harm to an individual or to the public interest. It's also in conformity with...
I love that. The nature of this opposition is, I know you are, but what am I? That's fucking fantastic. Lolly's just up there fucking... I mean, come on, bro.
With Rule of Professional Conduct 3.6c, which allows for such statements to rebut the prejudicial effects of the defendants and their counsel's misconduct. Now, again, I know the court has read through the Commonwealth's opposition, but just to highlight a few of those particular incidents. So, yes, the July 31st, I believe, was the ruling in regard to the, for lack of a better term, a gag order. And I think it's been somewhat inappropriately or just patently falsely represented to this court in public what that ruling said. It indicated that the statements of counsel arguably cross the line of permissibility under Rule 3.6, and that meaning defense counsel, that the inflammatory statements about the Commonwealth and witnesses, particularly by Attorney Jackson, appear to have fueled much of the publicity in this case, and that's a quote from the court's ruling, and that the defense counsel did not have carte blanche to speak with the media, and going forward, defense counsel should ensure that their statements are limited in conformity with the rules. And it denied the Commonwealth's request for that gag order at this time, denying it without prejudice. And then Mr. Yannetti wants to get up here and say...
So far, and thank you, Making Law Simple. I appreciate that, for clearing that up. So far, besides the I know you are, but what am I defense against this motion, is that, well, I'm mad at them because they put out all this information and now the public thinks that we're not doing our job right. What does that have to do with anything? The fuck does it have to do? What the fuck does what I think have anything to do with whether or not you guys acted nefariously throughout the start of this investigation?
What the fuck does that have to do with me and what I think? And how I came to find out about it? It's got nothing to do with nothing. I mean, I don't care. I don't care if Karen Reed and Turtle Boy fucking, sat there and shared a fucking plate of fucking spaghetti like Lady and the Tramp. And I don't give a fuck what type of relationship Turtle Boy and Karen Reed had. It means nothing. It has nothing to do with what Michael Morrissey and his office did. It has nothing to do with the lies that were told to the grand jury by these investigators. It has nothing to do with any of that shit. Totally irrelevant. And yet, this is your opposition to the accusations being made? Is that a fucking joke?
Here and say that they largely stopped making extrajudicial statements after the court's ruling. And so I guess largely stopping would then include August 22nd, the day before the district attorney's statement, a ABC News broadcast in which Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Jackson were featured for a 9-minute, 37-second segment, in which Attorney Jackson indicated that pieces of taillight were planted after the fact, that the victim walked into the house. I think he was confronted, was likely brought down to the basement. I think the confrontation got physical, and he was beaten to a point of unconsciousness, that he had defensive wounds, bruises on the back of his hands, largely of which...
all of which are valid things to bring up. And it's funny is the defense didn't even bring that shit up. You're bringing it up, Lolly. You're up here saying, oh, they accused Trooper Proctor of planting evidence. Well, I mean, did Trooper Proctor fucking document any of the 5 searches where he found these pieces of taillight? Was John O'Keefe's clothing bagged properly when taken off of him in order to try to save his life? Was there any indication of any type of procedure being met? Was there any indication of any procedure being met to basic law enforcement standards and investigative standards as far as the custody chain of custody of evidence? There's nothing. Like, there's not. All of it is fucked up. All of it. All of the evidence and how it was handled is completely and totally shot. And how do we know it's shot now? Now we know that Proctor is being internally investigated, which I'm not satisfied with, by the way. I'm sorry, I'm not singing Ding Dong the Witch is Dead with everybody else when it comes to Trooper Proctor's internal investigation. I don't like the word internal. I don't like it. It means jack shit to me, honestly. It means jack shit to me. To me, it falls under the category of more of quit looking over here. We got it. We got it. Because you're going to tell me that somebody higher than Trooper Proctor didn't go, hey, don't you know the Alberts? Yeah, you know I can't let you be the lead on this. Somebody above Proctor, I guarantee you, somebody above Proctor was aware of the nature of his relationship with the Alberts and with the McCabe's and did not take him off of this case, did not reassign this case to someone else in order to ensure a conviction of Karen Reed. They just did not do it. So far, I am holding the Massachusetts State Police as an entity in being responsible, as a whole entity in being responsible for this injustice so far. I'm holding them just as accountable, because as long as Michael Proctor wears a Massachusetts State Trooper badge and is on active duty, he still represents the Massachusetts State Police, which means that they are accountable. They are accountable. Not just Michael Proctor. They're accountable. Dude, what happens? What happens if you walk into McDonald's and order a fucking number one, and then somebody fucking takes, and then you see that employee, you catch that employee taking one of the patties and wiping their ass with it, and then slapping it on your Big Mac and giving it to you. And then the management goes, yeah, we'll take care of it. We're good. We're looking at this guy. Don't worry. It doesn't fire that person right on the fucking spot. Right? What am I supposed to think? I'm going to go, I'm never eating at that McDonald's again. You know why I'm not going to eat at that McDonald's again? Because how do I know that McDonald's doesn't fucking train their fucking employees to wipe their asses with my Big Mac patties and serve it to the public? How the fuck do I know that? I'm not satisfied with that. No, fire that motherfucker right now. I want to see that motherfucker packing his shit, clocking out, and you saying you're fired. Otherwise, I think that this is a practice of McDonald's, at least of this particular location. You expect me to be satisfied with a public statement saying that he's being internally investigated, but we stand behind him? Get the fuck out of my face, dude. I'm supposed to be satisfied with that shit? I'm supposed to be happy that I just complained to you. I said, hey, I saw this guy fucking wipe his ass with my Big Mac patty. What are you going to do about it? And then you say, hey, he's our employee and we stand behind him, but we'll take care of it. You just go on home and enjoy your Big Mac. I'm supposed to be like, okay, fuck no. Fuck no. Hell no. What is that shit? Yeah, sorry. Until this dude gets federally indicted. And before that, until this guy gets fucking fired for lying to a grand jury, I'm holding the Massachusetts State Police responsible. Sorry. Sorry. I know a lot of people aren't going to like that, but that's their fault. They handled this wrong. That's insane to me that I'm supposed to just be happy and satisfied with the Massachusetts State Police going, we got it. And he's still out there handling cases when we know at this point for a fact that this guy lied to a grand jury. We know for a fact that there was a conflict of interest directly pertaining to him in this investigation. We know this for a fact. It's not theory. It's not a suspicion. It's a fucking fact. And I'm supposed to just be like, oh, well, you know, the Mass State Police are looking into it. It's all good. Fuck out of my face with that shit. No, you need to fire that motherfucker and then investigate. That's what you need to do, because crimes were committed. Not just misconduct, crimes were committed. Perjury was committed. Get the fuck out of my face with this, you know, we got it. And we stand behind him. The fuck? What?
Which is all not only not true, but directly contradictory to the vast amount of evidence that has been turned over in this case. Mr. Jackson then went on to continue that this was a cover-up and indicating that John was murdered inside that house. His body was
facts. And they're not investigating Bukaki, right? They're not investigating Buchanan, really? Or Buchanan, however the fuck you say his name. They're not investigating him. Fuck out of my face, man. Protected by the union. I'm sure there's only so much protection that comes from the union. You know what I mean? Like, dude, at least suspend the guy. At least the fact that he's on active duty right now, handling other cases, is totally disheartening. The fact that you have not pulled him off of every case and reassigned these cases that he is actively working tells me that the Massachusetts State Police is not interested in getting victims justice. That's what that tells me. You have no interest in it. Why would you not at least suspend him pending an investigation? That makes no sense. And we're supposed to have faith in the Massachusetts State Police? Sorry. No. And you can get mad at me all you want. I'm just calling it as I see it. All faith lost in Massachusetts State Police. And I hate that. I hate that. I fucking hate it. If I'm being honest, I hate that people would feel that way. I'm not trying to perpetuate that. I'm just stating how I personally feel about it. How am I supposed to be satisfied if I am a resident of the Commonwealth of Massachusetts? I'm supposed to be satisfied with Massachusetts State Police basically saying nothing to see here, we'll take care of it. Knowing that we know that Trooper Proctor lied multiple times and that he completely and totally mishandled evidence. Right. That's the thing. See, this is a problem, and that bothers me too. Because if Brian Walsh goes free, because I am fucking certain that dude is guilty. I am absolutely certain that that dude is guilty. If Brian Walsh goes free, guess who I'm holding accountable? If Brian Walsh's case gets thrown the fuck out, guess who I'm holding accountable? And no, Karen Reed should not have to go to prison for the greater good of Brian Walsh going to prison. No, that's not how the law works. That's not how fucking justice works. Karen Reed should not have to go to prison because these guys fucked up. There obviously needs to be an absolute overhaul of how investigations are conducted in the Massachusetts State Police. There's absolutely needs to be an overhaul. Absolutely. The podcast was about nothing, Nick Rocco. It's good to see you too, buddy. The podcast is just what we already know, but it got my shit stirring and I'm already here, so I might as well just rant and rave about it. So that's all we're ended up doing and just talking about what we already know. But so for that, I apologize, guys. This was supposed to be a reaction video to Vinnie, but Vinnie hasn't said a fucking word throughout this whole podcast. So
this also continued into September. September 17th, the defendant traveling with Attorney Jackson, Attorney Little, and
yeah,
to be a television
again,
newsroom,
and I have to repeat that. If Brian Walsh goes free, that is 150% the Massachusetts State Police fault. That is their fault. Nobody else's. It's their fault. Like, this is why you have to be consistent. This is why you take an oath and you're consistent in getting justice and following that oath, following what your job is in every case, not just this one versus that one. No, you have to treat the integrity of every investigation the exact same way. This is why it's dangerous. This is why it's bad. It's not us talking about it. This is bad because the misrepresentation of the truth when it comes to Karen Reed's case can affect other cases. And this is how. Because if the same investigators are assigned to the Brian Walsh case, that means that Brian Walsh's defense is going to fucking be popping champagne. Because I am totally convinced that motherfucker's guilty. And you're going to sit there and try to dispute the integrity of and the validity of Celebrite data when that is actually what's going to end up convicting Brian Walsh. Give me a fucking break. Like, you people need to fucking come clean. You people need to come clean and say we fucked up. Otherwise, this guy who fucking totally murdered his wife and in the most arrogant, cockiest way, without even basically trying to hide it. Like, dude, you people need to step up. If you give a shit about justice for anybody, you need to step up and come clean about what you did with the Karen Reed case. Period. That's it. Because Brian Walsh is going to walk. He's going to walk. And you have any idea how much that's going to piss everyone off? And that's nobody's fault but the Massachusetts State Police. Nobody's fault but the Massachusetts State Police and the Norfolk County DA's office. Nobody's fault but theirs. Hear that shit?
O'Keefe's home in direct violation of her conditions of release, where she has to stay away from, as well as other places of interest and sort of tour around the town of Canton. When balancing the amount of public and prejudicial statements made by the defendant and her counsel, the Commonwealth would suggest that then characterizing the district attorney's statement from over 6 months ago, threatening her right to a fair trial, is simply a position that's just untenable. Now, in context, as far as those particular statements, those particular actions go,
all the evidence is untenable.
There is a significant history between this defendant, Mr. Yannetti, Mr. Jackson, and the social media blogger, Mr. Kearney, who's now been indicted for intimidation of witnesses in this case. And with reference to that, there is a significant, despite public indications to the contrary, that indications from Mr. Kearney's phone, which was seized, is that there is a precipitous amount of phone communications, indications of communications between Mr. Kearney and Ms. Reed on a signal messaging app, an encrypted app, as well as, I believe, about 189 phone calls over a span of a few months. And that's just what's indicated or contained in the phone. There is also, going back to the spring of 23, direct communications between Mr. Kearney and Mr. Yannetti and Mr. Kearney and Mr. Jackson. They went out to lunch with Mr. Kearney following a court date in May of 2023. And this is a person who counsel in the memo seems to want to distance themselves from, based, I'm presuming, on subsequent indictments. But the truth is in the phone. The phone doesn't lie as far as those communications are concerned, as far as those communications between counsel and between the defendant in this particular case. So to say...
I love that. The phone doesn't lie in this particular occasion. I love that shit. The phone doesn't lie, Your Honor, in this particular occasion. Let's hear that one more time.
And this is a person who counsel in the memo seems to want to distance themselves from, based, I'm presuming, on subsequent indictments. But the truth is in the phone. The phone doesn't lie as far as those communications are concerned, as far as
those communications are concerned.
Between the defendant.
The phone doesn't lie as far as those communications are concerned. But in other communications, the phone lies. Like, you know, in Jennifer McCabe's Google search, the phone lies. But the phone doesn't lie when it comes to these, as far as these communications go between Karen Reed and Turtle Boy, which has fucking nothing to do with this case. Which has nothing to do with whether or not Michael Morrissey was totally full of shit this entire time. Phone doesn't lie. You know what doesn't lie, bro? Is Michael Morrissey's fucking fat fucking face on fucking camera lying like a motherfucker. That doesn't lie.
In this particular case. So to say that this is a different case, again, I would suggest is a large minimization of what actually has transpired here. Lastly, what I'll say in reference to the federal grand jury, what is also clear from the federal grand jury is that this was an investigation which was initiated by the defendant and Mr. Yannetti. So to claim that he was in the dark or didn't know about this federal investigation, every bit of discovery that the federal government has from the state case was provided by Mr. Yannetti. Nothing was asked for from the Commonwealth. Nothing was asked for from the district attorney's office, the state police. So again, what I was intimating before in reference to the motion to dismiss, I have no idea what they have seen or what they haven't seen, how much of the file, how much of the discovery or anything else. It's all sort of been provided and colored by Mr. Yannetti. And this goes back to November of 2022. So to then claim that you were sandbagged or didn't know about an investigation that you initiated over a year before until late in December of 2023 is, I think, disingenuous. Disingenuous would be about the nicest term that I can come up with for that. Thanks.
All right. Mr. Yannetti, a short rebuttal. I guess,
I can think of other terms that would more accurately describe this entire prosecution than disingenuous. How about fucking lies? How about that? Fucking lies. Lies, Lolly. Not disingenuous, fucking lies.
You're lying. And you're a piece of shit.
Exactly, McGruber. Exactly.
I would just add, Your Honor, that the focus of Mr. Lally's argument was on everything except for Mr. Morrissey's conduct. Just like it doesn't matter if Mr. Morrissey and his office are actually targets of an investigation, it's only what he knew and believed. Similarly, with regard to his conduct in keeping secret the existence of a federal investigation, it doesn't matter whether we knew about it or not. It's the fact that Morrissey knew, kept it secret for 7 months, and didn't reveal it to the defense.
There you go.
The media got access to those letters. And with that, I would address.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
How about the fact that there is still discovery that the prosecution, who is by law and ethically obligated to share with the defense, has not been shared under the excuse that they no longer exist? How about the fact that the metadata for the crime scene photos and the actual device used to take the crime scene photos, which is a fucking iPhone, by the way. I'd love to see how that's standard procedure somewhere. No longer exist. These things no longer exist. But, you know, I mean, let's focus on the Funky Fresh app. Let's do that because it's Funky Fresh. Get the fuck out of my face, bro.
A question. Did you file the Rule 17 motions already, or do you expect to file them later today?
We will be filing them by the close of business today.
Okay, and they're pretty much outlined in your previous motion what you needed to file, or are there additional ones in your motion?
I believe they're outlined. Yeah, they're outlined, Judge.
Okay, I asked because Mr. Roach told me that on the March 20th date, council wants it to be via Zoom. I'd prefer it not be, because with Rule 17, as you know, that the record holders come into court and object. So I don't want you all to be on the screen. And Mr. Yannetti,
I don't want the Zoom to I don't want it to be Zoom. I because I don't want the glare to be on there and I have to overhear a super chat song. And I make sure to mute myself though, by the way, because I've learned my lesson thanks to the mistakes of other YouTube creators. But no, I don't. I prefer it not be Zoom. Because I don't want idiots from Canton to be yelling and screaming, talking about Auntie Bev and Pat the Gravy Morrissey are dirty. I don't want to hear those comments. I don't blame her, because the last time that she had a Zoom, like poor Alan Jackson was up there trying to talk, and then there was just some idiot saying some shit. I don't even remember what they were saying, but.
Natty, certainly your local counsel. Mr. Jackson, if you want to be on the screen, you can, but I need somebody here.
I just did one. That's fine.
Okay,
That's fine.
it makes sense to me.
Yep. If I may say.
Yes.
Can I appear in person and have my client join?
No, she has to be here.
Okay, thank you, Judge.
All right. Was there something else? Yes.
Oh yeah, free Billy Tibbetts. That's right.
Okay. All right, you had a question, Mr. Jackson?
I did, Your Honor, just about the logistics of the trial, meaning days in trial, half days, 5 days a week, 4 days a week. I wanted to get some sort of sense so we can begin planning.
Okay, so we're going to go full days, Monday, Wednesday, Friday, half days, Tuesday, Thursday.
Or the half days afternoon, half days morning?
Mornings. Okay. Anything else right now?
No, Your Honor, thank you.
Anything from the Commonwealth?
No, Your Honor.
Mr. McDermott?
Judge, I just wanted to put on the record that I think I provided everyone copies of that letter from Google. I just want to make sure, just put that on the record that I gave you copies of that. Thank you.
We received copies.
Right, great. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. Well, thanks, Vinny, for your input there on your podcast. I still like Vinny, but I was hoping to hear more. Anyways, guys, that's it for that. When something else comes up, I will go live. You guys know me. I am really grateful to you guys for joining me, especially putting up with my rants. I get a little heated when it comes to this stuff, man, sometimes. So pardon me for that. But anyways, I am going to wrap this up. I appreciate all you guys. You guys are absolutely fantastic. I'm grateful for all your support. Thanks for hitting the like. Thank you guys for subscribing. You new subscribers. That means a lot to me. You guys are amazing. I love you guys very much. And we will do this again very soon, my friends.